Good evening. I'll call to order this April 8th, 2025 Fairfield Plan and Zoning Commission meeting agenda. I'll call two items out of order in our old business. I think that will be helpful for us and for the public. Currently in section 3D and 3E, voting regulation amendments and special permit coastal site plan application regarding the address 441 Post Road, the applicant's 441 Post Road LLC. I'll take it upon myself to guess educatedly that's in talking and polling the commission that we're not ready for this yet. Our expiration date, or at least our last date for deciding this, is May 22nd, but I'm not in a position to talk about it yet with everything going on. I get the sense that the commission is not either. I would entertain a motion to table if that is what the commission would like. Commissioner Harrison.
I'll make a motion to table this item.
Thank you. 3D and 3E, is there a second? Commissioner Porcillo seconds. Anything further on it?
No, I mean, my only comment would be just for us and for the public, we get these agendas, Thursday or Friday beforehand. And it lists out everything that we're gonna may vote on. And these two items were on there, and the public may want to come here to observe. Some of us do prep over the weekend. And then we find out not until Monday or Tuesday that this is tabled. So I think if we can be more efficient that way, I know I understand why you put it on the agenda, but it just can be confusing.
It's up to the commission. So I mean, if
Whoever makes the agenda, I assume that's chairman.
Well, I think it's always been practice that when you have reviewed an item under public hearing, it always ends up under old business. And then if, depending on the time constraints, you can always push out making that decision as a commission, but it's not up to me. It's really up to you guys as the commission to do that. So I don't know that I can kind of preload.
Right. No, I hear what you're saying. No, I get it.
Yeah.
Just.
I mean,
Okay.
if the concern is about prepping and such, I mean, obviously we can certainly talk about these well in advance of when you get the agenda, because this is going to be on every agenda. So.
And there many of them, as you know, we all know they're complicated. They
Yep.
take a lot of time. So just throwing that out there. I appreciate the consideration.
Commissioner Corsella.
Nothing further.
Can we put this motion to the table, these two items to the vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. The next item, 3F, I'd like to take out of order 4480 Black Rock Turnpike. Again, I think in polling the commission, I feel like we're not ready for this because this was just finished last week. Commissioner Harrison had mentioned doing a site visit, maybe this Friday, more I think on that, but regardless, we do have to have a vote on this by April 22nd. We are constrained in that respect, so that would mean 2 weeks from now. So, having said that, I mean, I'll entertain a motion to table unless the commission wants to order it, and we put it back in the regular order. Motion to table.
I'll make a motion to table that.
Is there a second? Commissioner Corsillo? Anything further?
No, nothing. Some of us are invited to go to a sidewalk. I know we're going to be doing that in groups, so hopefully people will take advantage of that. If they feel it's appropriate.
Again, I think it's important. We finished this up last week. Plenty of other things going on and discussing, and I'm not ready for this myself. So, as again rightfully said, this had to be put on our agenda. And commission, in my opinion, at least I'm not ready. I'm getting the sense that most aren't either. So, Commissioner Corsillo, anything else?
No, nothing further.
Any other comments or questions from the commission? Can we put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. So 4480 Black Rock Turnpike has been tabled along with the two petitions regarding 441 Post Road. I expect they will not be on our special meeting agenda next week. It will be on our regularly scheduled meeting 2 weeks from now. And at the very least, we need to be ready for 4480 Black Rock Turnpike. Okay. So thank you for that. I think it's helpful to get those out and at least let the public know as well, so they're not waiting. Go back to our bills and communications. Meeting minutes from March twenty-fifth and April 1st. May I have a motion on the item? Mayor Harrison,
I'll make a motion to adopt the April 1st meeting.
March 25th.
Oh, I'm sorry, March
That's okay.
25th, yeah.
Is there a second?
I second. No,
Commissioner Braun, seconds. Commissioner Harrison,
They look good to me. No, nothing further.
question.
go
On
ahead.
2190 Post Road, the plan that's referred to alternate two, is that posted anywhere? And so somebody or us or somebody could identify what plan it is that we're approving for the. It should be somewhere published, right? Or attached to the minutes, maybe?
I'm not sure I understand what she's referring to. Do you?
Are
Oh,
you,
The Porch dealership, 2190 Post Road. Can you hear me okay?
That probably is, I mean, that was put in litigation, so
so yeah, it's part
it's
of
not
the
me-
settlement. We can't post it
not gonna be able to post it yet.
per the town attorney.
Alternate two is something we discussed, so we know what it is, but at some point it'll become part of the court judgment and then that will be published at that time.
Yeah, I think
If
that's
it's
the
settled,
order.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Levy?
I just need to abstain on the 4-1 minutes as I wasn't here.
Sure. We put this to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
So passed unanimously, except Commissioner Levy abstains for April 1st. Let me just take a quick moment. The one, I've been working with Ms. Harrigan on, along with Commissioner Porcillo, a roster chart of, and a roster of pending applications and when things are scheduled and when things are due. He and I, Commissioner Porcillo and I will look at it just to eyeball it quickly, but I will send this out to commission at some point, so everybody can kind of see where things are as far as our pending roster and when deadlines are. Already gotten extensions for almost all of them, so especially the 830G ones. If you see when the deadline is, that's a hard deadline. So I will get this out to everybody. I just need to look at it myself, just to make sure Tom and I are available to preside over them, but yeah, I hate to say it's not too pretty though. So, but I'll get that out to everybody.
Thank you.
Moving on, new applications for recommendation to public hearing. 338 Commerce Drive, special exception application of Hyundai dealership pertaining to a new location of a Genesis sales and service facility, design industrial district. Ms. Harrigan,
We all get April minutes. I don't remember approving the April minutes. Did we just do that?
we did.
Oh,
Did them
okay.
Ms. Harrigan,
We-
yes, Commissioner Braun.
We bifurcate the new applications to receive and not do them all together. There's only two anyway, really.
I just called one. I just
Oh,
called
I'm sorry. 338.
Ms. Harrigan.
So for 338 Commerce Drive, this is an application that you had seen once before, where they were going to actually do an addition onto, I think they were going to,
I don't think they're gonna vote on it there. Might as well walk them. Let's go. Let's go.
Mr. Bancor, whatever you're
Come
done.
on, let's go. Hurry up.
hey, I think they're muted. Two things at once.
Sorry, Ms. Harrigan.
That's okay. So for this one, what they actually decided to do was to extend into an existing building on the right, as it's an expansion of an auto sales dealership. It is required to come before you as a special exception use.
Thank you. I have a motion.
To move.
Commissioner Braun moves, Commissioner Porcillo seconds. Commissioner Braun,
Yep, something we have to do. So let's push it over.
Commissioner Corsilla? Your public hearing is required. Vote on this. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Commissioner Braun?
Sorry.
Passes unanimously. Next two items I'll call together, 430 and 452 Stilson Road, zone change application of Shapiro Commons LLC to establish a design residence district on land presently zoned Residence A. 430 and 452 Stilson Road, special permit application of Shapiro Commons LLC pertaining to a construction of a 19-unit residential development.
Mr. Chairman, I'm recused.
Thank you. Who's sitting in?
I think it's, so it's up to you, but I think it's probably Delgado. I believe it was Siebert and Collins were the last two.
That's fair. We won't hold this one against you though, because it's just a moving to public hearing. And Commissioner Delgado, you'll vote for Commissioner Braun. Okay.
So for these two applications, these were part of these were originally paired with the DRD regulation amendment that you reviewed and you approved. The applicant at that time withdrew this proposal both for the zone change as well as the special permit review. And now they are resubmitting to have that reviewed by the commission.
Thank you. May I have a motion on the item? Commissioner Corsilla,
Move to recommend the public hearing.
is there a second? Commissioner Harrigan? Harrison, sorry.
We'll get used to it.
Commissioner Corsilla,
Hearing is required.
Commissioner Harrison,
No issues.
nothing more. We put this to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Moving on to our old business. Ms. Harrigan, I think you have your staff comments for all three items, I believe, right?
I do, yep.
Alright, so why don't I will call the first item. You have to at least take the votes in order, I think as the agenda is. But I think it's worth just having your comments for everything, so we can just go through the comments, staff comments, and then onto the agenda. So let me just call the first item, 2179, 2199 Post Road, 29 Fairfield Place. Acquisition of Sunshine Acquisitions Group LLC to establish a center design business district on land presently zoned design commercial district. Is everybody up to speed? It needs to be. Commissioner Harrison, Commissioner Ford.
Yeah, I missed the February 18th meeting, I believe, but I have watched all of them.
Commissioner Ford, are you up to speed?
Yes, I'm up to speed. Watched them all.
Can we just understand the difference between the staff comments from like March 11th to the staff comments for March 25th? Are they the same? I didn't really see any difference in them.
I'll let Ms. Harrigan go through that, but again, I called 3A.
Okay.
Ms. Harrigan will go through her staff comments, which will encompass 3A to 3C. Ms. Harrigan.
For 2179, 2199 Post Road and 29 Fairfield Place, the subject property is an aggregation of 3 existing parcels and total approximately 31,000 square feet or 0.71 acres, and is presently within the design commercial district. The property is bounded by the Post Road to the north, Lindbergh Street and a residential home to the east, Fairfield Place to the west, and 2 residential properties to the south. The proposal entails a 4-story mixed-use commercial and residential building. This development proposal has several components that require their own deliberation and vote. There is a zoning regulation amendment proposal, a zone change proposal, and special permits and coastal site plan to consider. While they are intertwined and dependent on each other, there are separate votes and considerations for each of them. The zoning regulation amendments include section 12.3.16 to eliminate the current 50% total floor area limitation for residential use and permit more than 2 stories of residential occupancy while still prohibiting ground floor residential use. Section 12.7.6.1 and 12.7.6.2 in conjunction with section 12.7.6.4 to permit a property that fronts on 3 or more public streets to allow for a 10-foot setback from all other property lines. This would permit the reduction of the rear yard adjacent to the Residence B zone from 20 feet to 10 feet. Section 12.7.4 to reduce the maximum story height from 5 stories to 4 and increase the overall height from 50 feet to 52 feet. Section 12.7.6.6 to require a 4th story to be set back an additional 4 feet along any street line, including emergency egress stairs, chimneys, balconies, open porches, pergolas, bat windows, or similar architectural projections. Section 12.7.6.5.2 to allow open porches to project not more than 7 feet into the street setback. Section 12.7.5.2 to increase the permitted total floor area from 200% of the area of the lot to 250%. Section 25.7.9 to require that mixed-use projects in the Center Design District are required to increase the inclusionary zoning below market rate set aside from 10% to 20% of the number of units. Section 28.6.1 to reduce the parking required for 1-bedroom and studio units in the commercial district to 1.25 spaces per unit. Section 28.6.12 to reduce parking for restaurant uses from 1 space for each 40 square feet of patron floor area to 1 space per each 250 square feet of patron area, with a further reduction of 1 space for each 250 square feet of public plaza area provided. Section 31.2.16 to allow to increase the allowed projection above the roof from 10 feet to 17 feet for stairs and elevators located on an occupied roof. The amendments regarding the permitted amount of residential use, building height, and floor area, as well as parking considerations, have their roots in the adopted 2019 TOD study. Those are all recommendations in that study for the commission to consider implementing in the Center Design Business District. The other elements for consideration are due to the unique positioning of this parcel bounded by 3 streets. There are presently 2 other parcels bounded by 3 streets, Bank of America at 1366 Post Road and the Community Theater. It's important to note that the increased residential opportunity proposed comes with the obligation to deed restrict 20% of the total number of dwelling units at 80% AMI. If approved, that is a standard that would apply to any mixed-use development in the Center Design District proposing 10 or more dwelling units, not just this proposal. The applicant on rebuttal indicated that the commission does not have to approve the amendments in their entirety for a mixed-use project to go forward. Recognizing the concerns raised regarding the potential off-site parking that could result from a restaurant use, the applicant indicated that should the commission not approve the reduced parking proposed for restaurant uses, they would not oppose such a determination. Standard considerations for a regulation amendment are: 1, is the proposal consistent with the plan of conservation and development? 2, does time experience and responsible planning for contemporary or future conditions reasonably indicate the need for the proposed amendment? 3, has it been demonstrated that the proposal is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town? 4, does the proposed amendment promote a level of development that would serve to protect property values in the neighborhood and enhance the community and accomplish a transition in character between areas of unlike character? 5, would the proposed amendment permit a level of development that would increase undue traffic congestion? In this case, the proposal not only seeks to amend the regulations, but also to expand the geography to which those regulations apply. For the zone change, the applicant seeks to establish a Center Design Business District on land presently zoned Design Commercial District. The applicant recognizes that the draft POCD has not yet been adopted. Nevertheless, the draft does recommend the commission consider expanding the footprint of the Center Design District. While the site is not presently in the Center Design Business District, the site is in the center planning area in the current POCD. While not specifically calling out this site, the 2019 TOD study effort did examine the potential for a new mixed-use TOD development on sites like Exide. This site, while smaller, is directly across the street and has the same walk shed to the Fairfield station, which is approximately 2/3 of a mile. Standard considerations for a zone change include: one, is the proposal consistent with the plan of conservation and development? These are generally similar. Two, does time, experience, and responsible planning for contemporary or future conditions reasonably indicate the need for the proposed zone change? Three, have circumstances in the neighborhood changed substantially to warrant the requested zone change? Four, has it been demonstrated that the proposal is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town? Five, does the proposed zone change promote a level of development that would serve to protect property values in the neighborhood and enhance the community and accomplish a transition in character between areas of unlike character? And six, would the proposed zone change permit a level of development that would increase undue traffic congestion? It should be noted that a valid protest petition was submitted in conjunction, in opposition to the proposed zone change. Therefore, for this particular item of the application, a 2/3 vote or 5 affirmative votes are required to approve the zone change. This applies only to the zone change, not the proposed regulation amendments. For the special permit and coastal site plan, the again, as a reminder, the applicant seeks to build the 4-story mixed-use building with 40 units and ground floor commercial, including the residential lobby, a coffee shop, retail, and a potential restaurant, dependent on the text changes approved. The residential portion of the building has amenity meeting space, a fitness club, a clubhouse, outdoor lounge and garden areas, and a rooftop pool and landscape deck area. The common amenity spaces are oriented towards the post road, including 2 small public plazas at each corner of the building. There's a ground level green space towards the rear of the property, which is accessible via a walking path that integrates into the public sidewalk provided at the street frontages to provide circulation around the site. Street trees are provided on all street frontages with a landscaped area to the rear of the building on both Fairfield Place and Lindbergh Street. The 31,301 square foot parcel provides 2 levels of parking with 62 spaces and 9 surface spaces for a total of 71 spaces. The residential parking is provided at a ratio of 1.25 spaces per unit for a total of 50 spaces allocated to the residential, with the remaining 21 spaces allocated to the commercial uses on site. This per unit residential parking ratio is consistent with other mixed-use projects in Fairfield. Per the proposed zoning regulation, 20% of the units or 8 units will be provided at 80% AMI. This is a higher rate of affordability than other projects approved by special permit, even in the TOD overlay areas. The proposed building faces the post road with frontages on Lindbergh Street and Fairfield Place. Driveway access and site entry is one directional off Lindbergh Street with one-way exiting out of Fairfield Place. The applicant's traffic consultant has determined that the proposed traffic volume generation does not negatively impact traffic congestion, and the proposal meets sightline visibility distance requirements. On-site stormwater detention is proposed to accommodate any additional runoff for the proposed site improvements for the 100-year 1% rainfall event. The site is located within the coastal area for which a coastal site plan review is required. However, there are no direct coastal resources in close proximity to the site. The Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Connecticut DEEP, commends the application for integration of a stormwater management system, and provided that soil erosion and sedimentation controls are implemented for the duration of construction, indicates that no impacts to coastal resources are anticipated as a result of the proposed project. Adjacent neighbors expressed concerns about existing street parking, the narrow nature of Lindbergh Street and Fairfield Place, combined with the neighborhood's lack of sidewalks and the potential for the proposed development to result in additional traffic through their residential streets. The neighbors had a licensed engineer review the drainage report, to which the applicant's engineer provided clarification and indicated that the system meets the town's requirements. In response to concerns raised by directly adjacent residential property owners regarding the building architecture, the applicant submitted revised architectural plans and agreed to increase the 4th floor setback off the residential property on Fairfield Place an additional 10 feet, and to remove some public balconies and porches facing the neighbors and convert some of these areas to private balconies. The considerations for the special permit are found in section 25.7.7. Is the development shown on the site and architectural plans of such character as to harmonize with the neighborhood, to accomplish a transition in character between areas of unlike character, to protect property values in the neighborhood, to preserve and enhance the appearance and beauty of the community, and to avoid undue traffic congestion. Those are the staff comments I have.
Thank you. I think it makes sense to start with 3A. Should be going in order. The zone change. I'm happy to change if anybody thinks otherwise. It just strikes me that maybe the zone change makes sense unless we want to combine 3A and 3B.
I would say that makes the most sense. Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, so I'll call then 3A and 3B zone change and text amendments. Can I have a motion on the items? Commissioner Corzillo,
Move to approve the zoning regs and to approve the zoning, I'm sorry, move to approve the zoning change. Move to approve all the zoning regulations with the exception of the restaurant parking requirement reduction.
section number 28, right?
That is
Ms. Harrigan, the restaurant.
section 28.6.
Right. Sure. 8.6.
28.6.12.
Okay, so approve, except for that. There a second? Randolph seconds. Commissioner Porcello.
So I'll run through the conditions that Ms. Harrigan enumerated. So are the proposed regulations consistent with the 2016 POCD? Yes, there's several recommendations in the current POCD, not just the draft, that the proposed changes directly support, including encouraging residential units on upper floors in commercial areas, promoting affordable housing in all areas of town, encouraging economic development, and others. So that one clearly meets the condition. Does time, experience, and responsible planning for contemporary or future conditions reasonably indicate the need for the proposed amendment? Yes, the need for affordable housing is well established, and these changes clearly advance that objective. But beyond that, the current regulations are severely antiquated, and I think modernizing them is long overdue. The 50% limit on residential, just as an example, is a relic of a time when there was demand for second-story office space. That market clearly no longer exists. And I'll touch on some others in future points. Have circumstances, this one's specific to the zone change. Circumstances in the neighborhood change substantially to warrant the requested zone change. Again, yes, the COVID, for example, exacerbated changing market forces that were already underway, including how people work, and again, the 50% cap on residential, which essentially requires second floor office use, no longer makes any sense. And in my view, time has proven that the 25-foot street line setback required in the design commercial district is detrimental to the neighborhood, giving us parking lots in front of buildings, which is hostile to pedestrians and encourages driving over walking. Has it been demonstrated that the proposal is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town? Absolutely. The proposed regulation amendments would allow for development that is less car dependent and more pedestrian oriented. Would create the critical mass needed for the town to invest in enhancing and expanding public infrastructure in the area in a way that would benefit the entire town and would substantially grow the town's grand list. Does the proposed amendment promote a level of development that would serve to protect property values in the neighborhood and enhance the community and accomplish transition and character between areas of unlike character? Yes, properties in the neighborhood can expect to see an increase in value with the proposed changes, while 15-foot ground floor retail spaces with 2 to 3 stories of residential above generating additional pedestrian foot traffic would certainly, in my view, enhance the community. And would the proposed amendment permit a level of development that would increase undue traffic congestion? No, ground floor retail is already permitted in the district. That's not a new use. And the proposed amendments would allow an additional floor or two of residential above what's currently allowed, which data shows would not contribute significantly to traffic. And then specifically on the decision on my proposal to exclude the parking reduction proposed related to restaurant uses, I think Post Road would benefit from more uses like that. But I think the neighbors raised valid concerns about the lack of street parking, the lack of sidewalks. The videos that were shown clearly demonstrate there are unsafe conditions. And I think we have an opportunity to address a potential reduction in the parking requirement for restaurants as part of a broader look at parking requirements for downtown and other parts of town, rather than in this particular context. I think that would also allow the town to take a broader look at what additional infrastructure investments are needed to accommodate that, whether it's acquiring additional land for municipal parking or something else to accommodate that. So given that the applicant has indicated they are able to move forward with a plan that doesn't have the restaurant, I think it makes sense to defer the decision on parking reduction until we can have a broader, more thoughtful conversation about that. But overall, I mean, I think these are changes that are sorely needed. I think they are going to create a pedestrian-friendly, less car dependent, less car oriented Post Road. Beginning with again, these are changes that apply to the existing center design business district, not just newly changed part of Post Road. And so I think it's going to be an improvement for the existing center design business district. And I think that those benefits will accrue to this new site as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Randolph.
Thank you, Commissioner Cursillo. Just to restate the questions, because these are all technical. Broadly speaking, the question is, the standard for consideration is this proposal consistent with the plan of conservation and development? Does time and experience and responsible planning for contemporary future conditions reasonably indicate the need for these amendments? So is there a need for these amendments? Has it been demonstrated that the proposal is warranted and would serve the general health and welfare? Does the proposed amendment promote a level of development that would serve to protect the property value of the neighborhood? And would the proposed amendment permit a level of development that would increase undue traffic congestion? So I'll just generally answer these questions rather than going through them specifically. But first and foremost, those of you who've been here know that we're toiling away on the new plan of conservation and development. In 2016, I'm not sure how many of you have read this, but this site is within what's defined as the center area, and that's Romanet 2, 3, 10 on page 53. So right now the center area is defined going to the Mill River. So this site is in the center business district, and within that center business district in the 2016 plan of conservation development, it says it encouraged in 2016 the establishment of a business district distinguishing the center area from other business districts. These amendments help do that. They reinforce this and carry out what was planned in 2016. And then it says in 2016, it encourages the requirement of customer client oriented first floor commercial uses in the district. This project clearly aligns with that objective from 2016. Modification of parking standards. It recognized back in 2016 that we had problems with the parking ratios, which were written in the 1970s for strip centers. And these requirements, these text amendments are consistent with modifications to create a center area. And then it talks about easing of alcohol beverage regulations for restaurants, encouraging restaurant use. The applicants withdrawal of the restaurant use for this period, but the 2016 P O C D suggested restaurant use. And then it says, create a transitional zone for multifamily housing. This is clearly on the post road. It's not in a multifamily neighborhood, but it's a transitional zone on the post road. So this is very consistent with the vision for Fairfield's downtown. And I know many of the people who've spoken, it's their neighborhood, but downtown belongs to the entire community and the region. It's a shared space. It's on the Boston Post Road, which is one of the, it's been for hundreds of years, it's been the main artery of development in the state and in the region. The Post Road belongs to everyone. So developing it a more intensive use is the logical place. And what's evidenced is the Metro North is a short distance away, 95 is there. This has been the spine of development of Connecticut for hundreds of years. And we're putting something, we're trying to encourage development along that spine. It's where the utilities are, it's where people travel. So it's a logical place that's consistent with the orderly growth of the community. There's an established need for housing in this community. Now, I know I've lived here longer than many people in this room. This used to be a much more affordable community than it is now. And for those of you who've been here just for 5 years, you know that housing prices have gone up considerably. Now, I don't want to digress too long, but I know people who want to live here, who'd be great members of our community, who have family ties here, who can't live in our community because it's too expensive. Now, think about people you know like that, and that's who we're building. We're trying to encourage people to come to our community and be viable members of our community and not exclude people and put up a no vacancy sign. So think about that. I know change is difficult, but that's really what we're thinking about, the logical growth of our community. So one of the main issues, and I empathize with everyone, traffic is a huge issue in our community. It's a huge issue, but creating a more pedestrian-oriented community is one way to reduce store-to-store trips where people are driving short distances. And these regulations encourage a more pedestrian-oriented development. Now, we've got a lot of work to do in this, absolutely, but this is a start. Unless we make these kind of changes, we're going to continue having strip malls, people driving short distances, putting in gas stations, putting in car-oriented places. This is not a car-oriented set of regulations. This is an anti-car-oriented set of regulations, which will logically allow our community to grow in a fashion without proportionately increasing traffic. Now, I'm not addressing the specific application, but residential developments generate a low proportion of traffic. So I know this is a big concern, but by changing these regulations, we'll encourage denser development rather than strip development or gas stations or convenience stores that generate a high volume of traffic. So we know that there will be incremental traffic, but we hope that perhaps we can convert and encourage development that is not car-oriented. Change is difficult. It's difficult always, but this community has always changed. It's always evolved. And these regulations will direct growth in an area that's logical. We see every week these 830Gs that are foisted on our community in the wrong place because we haven't been able to plan correctly because one, we haven't finished the POCD, and two, we haven't kept up with the housing demand. These regulations will be a first step to allow us to direct growth in areas that are logical, which is within the center area.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Randolph. Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate everybody's thoughts so far. I have a different viewpoint, which I will share. And I just want to, talk about a few points that Commissioner Randolph made about affordable housing and 830G. If this was approved, if that application is approved, we are still not exempt from 830G. That's the reality of it. And we have made great strides to create a diversity of housing over a few months ago. I think that this commission passed a DRD regulation that expands more multifamily in Fairfield. So we are doing a lot of hard work. Unfortunately, because of the way 30G is made up, we don't always see those numbers really balance out. That's just reality of it. So here are the standards for the zone change. Is the proposal consistent with the POCD? No, the 2016 POCD emphasizes the center design business district as the historic center of the town. It points out that the community wants to continue with small scale development. The 2016 POCD obviously does mention recent years' development activity or the current situation, or doesn't, excuse me. It must be considered before passing new regulations. We have 1,000 units approved in this community that haven't been built yet, and I really think we get to feel those impacts before we can really plan and really look at as we plan and before we approve more. You know, things have changed in the last 8 years with, added traffic congestion, changes in development activity, behavior changes. For example, the 2016 POCD suggests that the 6-acre Exide property could be developed into a transit-oriented mixed use, but that site is now going to be a Porsche dealership. Obviously, as the years go by, the 10-year plan anticipates the current conditions will be assessed before passing regulations or changing the zone map. The ongoing POCD update is underway. We will be modernizing the regulations, as Commissioner Corsilla mentioned. That's what we do when we wear our planning hats. We don't have to rush this through in order to modernize our regulations. We will be doing that work. And that POCD is not due for another 19 months. Just a few more points I want to make. Does time and experience and responsible planning for contemporary or future conditions reasonably indicate the need for the proposed zone change? No, the zone change would create an island of a one-lot center district, far removed from the rest of the district. That's not a logical or planful zone change. The zone change, with or without the proposed text amendments to the center district, would cause parking overflow emanating from this development. This would result in severe and chronic safety issues as the small, narrow residential streets without sidewalks would have to accommodate. There's no need for the zone change for this specific site. It would not fit in with the adjacent area, and it's just not responsible planning on our part to pass this zone change. Have circumstances in the neighborhood changed substantially to warrant requested zone change? No, the reverse is true. There is more traffic congestion on that stretch of the post road. We all see it. We all live that. Many of us live down there, but I see that. There's virtually no public parking anywhere down there. Safety complaints have really grown in recent years. There's already inadequate parking in that area. And I really believe a holistic traffic and parking study is needed before changing any type of zone of that portion of the post road. Number 4, has it been demonstrated that the proposal is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town? Now, as I've indicated throughout this hearing, and I think others have, this project would create danger and unsafe situation and would severely degrade the neighborhood and in the Fairfield Place and Lindbergh Street area. Number 5, does the proposed zone change promote a level of development that would serve to protect property values to the neighborhood and enhance the community and accomplish a transition in character between the areas of unlike character? No, the zone change is proposed to allow abrupt change, a much higher zone, much higher density, more mass, more traffic, overflowing parking. It enables a building of a size proposed in the special permit, which towers over and within 10 feet of the property lines of abutting homes, which I think will result in overflow parking and a great deal of traffic entering and exiting those narrow roads. I do think this is a good project, but this is just not the right place for it. I appreciate the vision of the applicant, and I know that he spent a great deal of time and energy into this, but this is just, I think, the wrong piece of land for it. And then just lastly, with number 6, would the proposed zone change permit a level of development that would increase undue traffic congestion? I think that's pretty obvious, yes. As pointed out during the hearing, there is an undercount of vehicles entering and exiting for the proposed uses, and the ITE manual does not contain either any site-specific data and it predates any pandemic era changes in traffic, such as deliveries with Amazon, Uber Eats, etc. The application admits that the service level at Lindbergh from commercial development across the post road would decrease from D to Z. I've driven these roads in the post road at even non-peak hours, and I think it's very difficult to enter and exit from. The recent approved Porsche dealership will have 300 spaces in the parking lot with 150 employees, customers, and service spaces, with its main entrance at Lindbergh and Fairfield Place. Adding more density would just create a disaster. Even without that, the service level will decrease, and assuming the undercount is correct, traffic congestion will increase greater than has been predicted. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Braun?
Are we talking about only the zoning change or the text amendment or both at the same time?
Both.
The criteria are similar. So I have an overarching sort of comment, which is it's very odd to change the amendments for the entire center business district, which spans from Beach Road to Bungalow, which is, I don't know, a couple blocks beyond where Starbucks is. I don't know why they're seeking to do that. It has nothing to do with this project. This site, by my calculation, is about a third of a mile beyond the existing center business district. So you're basically saying we want to change the zone for this site to be the center business district. And we want to change the regulations for the whole center business district, which would then include just this site, but nothing else surrounding it. It doesn't make sense. And the information provided does not support our changing a regulation for the entire center business district, again, which goes from Beach Road to Bungalow on both sides of the post road. And we have had discussions informally with the new 10-year POCD. They're not final. There's no consensus. And as much as I appreciate the applicant mentioned that he was hoping the POCD would be adopted the way it was drafted, but it hasn't been, and there's no consensus. And there's been much discussion, not only of what is being proposed here to fill the rest of the post road down to Southport, but also discussion of a different type of district called a gateway district, which would have less density and perhaps have less density on the side that faces the houses as opposed to the side that faces the railroad tracks. So that didn't really come up in this hearing, but it should, because if you're talking about a fictitious document that doesn't exist, talk about all the discussion, not just the discussion that supports what you want to do. So we have a non-existent document that's being discussed, but that discussion encompassed a lot more than what would support this project. So that I have a concern that we have not done the research, the studies, or anything needed to pass a regulation amendment that would encompass the entire downtown. That is the heart and soul of our town. It's also one of the most significant congestion and parking problem areas. And I don't know why they did it when they basically just want to do the spot that they're applying for, that, which is bad enough. So that's my overarching concern with this, that we have not done the research. We should not be passing regulations without doing our research first, without getting a traffic and parking study of the entire downtown, as well as a stormwater study. Because flooding goes up every year, congestion goes up every year, people can't find parking every year. And yes, this application, especially if you pass the amendment, it's not car friendly, but we have cars. And I don't know how people are going to get down the post road anymore by expanding density, height, density, reducing setbacks, reducing parking, all the way down to Southport. The volume of cars is too big. Nothing being proposed will reduce the volume of cars. You're simply adding height, floor area ratio, density, more residential, without really studying the potential impacts. I think it would be irresponsible of us to even consider changing our entire downtown business district in this manner. Just this one site, that would be a separate issue. But the whole entire business district, which is not even near the site, not necessary, not part of this project, should not even be entertained. Regarding this site alone, it's basically spot zoning. I guess you could classify it in different ways, but basically they want to change the entire downtown district so that this zone can be changed for this parcel to match what they want to change the entire downtown district to. I don't think there's a need for it. I'll just go through quickly. I'll just adopt everything Commissioner Harrison said, and I'll just add a couple of other points. It's not responsible planning. There's no need for it right now. As has been pointed out, there's probably 1,100 apartment units throughout the town and dozens of apartment buildings that have already been approved in recent years, just not built yet. We also have pending right now, I think 12 8-30Gs, as well as several non 8-30G apartment buildings. high likelihood that they'll all be approved either by us or by the courts. That's just the way the statistics work. I'm not saying how I would vote, but so we have a lot coming down that's not been considered in the traffic studies, or well, we have no traffic study, but they have not been considered. Circumstances have changed. Yeah, they've changed by adding more congestion and more safety issues. We had a fatality here, I don't know, 15 or 18 months ago, 100 feet from this parcel. I looked at the state website. There's updated accident data that I don't think were provided. There's a lot of accidents in this area. It's not a safe area to do anything. And by adding more development, you're going to have more accidents and less safety. So based on that, it would not serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town. We don't need this level of development right now. And again, we've been having discussions in our POCD discussion. I completely oppose something that this would anchor to be repeated side by side all the way up and down the post road on both sides. I believe that something like this could go on the other side of the post road, where you don't have houses right behind it. This literally wraps around two houses. It has a plaza for public access right next to a colonial house right next to it. On the that's on the Lindbergh side. On the Fairfield Place side, they're demolishing the little red house, and the house next to that will be basically next to an alleyway going behind the project to the open public entertainment plaza, and it will tower over these houses. It will literally destroy this neighborhood. You cannot have the same scale, size, mass of development right next to this neighborhood as you might be able to have across the road, across the post road. As far as would protect property values, no. We've already heard people say people have moved out. They're going to move out. They're terrified. They know their neighborhood. They know their property values. Everyone knows if you put massive developments right next to average residential houses, it will affect your property value. And not just, well, this site alone, which spans from, Fairfield Place to Lindbergh, but the impacts could be felt as far as Sasko on one side and Pine Creek on the other side, because people will be cutting through these neighborhoods. As you add more volume, more people will cut through. People leave the highway, they go down the post road, they cut through. There was ample testimony about that. So property values would not be protected. And this is our job, to protect property values. This is not an 8-30G where property values do not apply. In this decision we have to make, we need to be protecting this neighborhood's property values and not degrade the neighborhood and marginalize it. It also will not accomplish a transition in character. Even though it's mixed use, it's too big. If this was maybe at least one floor lower and 30 feet farther from the houses, you could probably do something like this. I prefer a more New England style to match some of the other office buildings down that stretch, but it's really the scale and the proximity to the neighbors. That's the problem. And the traffic is bad. Now, I do not recall any application being made to change it from the restaurant use to the retail use. I know we have discretion to do what we want, but no studies have been presented. I don't know what that square footage of retail use would do to traffic or parking in this neighborhood. We have Gruel Britannia on one side that uses, I think, 6 to 8 spaces on this site for their business. That will disappear, obviously. You'll have overflow parking from there up and down the road. You'll have many more cars going in and out in Lindbergh, out Fairfield Place, making a left or a right on the post road. I drove down there. I exited from the Wedding Cake building, and it was already difficult to make a left or a right. If you're going to add this level of development, whether it's retail or restaurant, you're going to have a whole lot of cars coming in Lindbergh from the post road, making that level of service get lower. They admitted it would get lower with the use they're proposing, which is the restaurant and retail and cafe use. But we don't have any studies that show if that would improve necessarily. So I don't think it would. So, okay, that's that point. Yeah, so I guess I've reached the 6th point about traffic congestion. And then relating to the text amendment, a lot of the criteria are the same. As far as consistency with plan of conservation and development, I'm aware that 2016 one does mention that we should look at extending the downtown area, et cetera, et cetera. A lot has changed from then till now. And any POCD is a guidance document. It also did point out, as Commissioner Harrison pointed out, that the downtown area is the sort of historic center of our town. People like it to be looking like a small town center. They don't want a whole lot of height and a whole lot more density. And we certainly cannot accommodate more traffic volume without doing studies to figure out where are you putting the cars. Just because you're building more and having less parking does not mean you're going to reduce the cars. You're still going to add to the cars. And Exide is going in, Porch is going in as well. A couple more points. As far as the restaurant use, completely inadequate. I mean, two experts talked for the neighbors and they both sort of repeated what each other said. Completely inadequate. It will create dangerous and unsafe conditions. And again, we have not done a study of what would result if it became all retail instead of restaurant, retail, and cafe. There's been no study to let us know that that would be safe. It would be irresponsible for us to pass this regulation, even just on that one site, without having that information. But again, the proposal for the text amendment is to cover the whole downtown area and then stop and then cover this site. So the data for this site has not been added to talk about how it would change if it was only retail versus the proposal, okay? And with what they did propose, the data shows a lot of overflow parking. The expert for the neighbors pointed out that he actually did a site-specific study of Geronimo and Grille Britannia, and they have overflow parking. It's a problem. Harry's Liquor Store has to have enforcement to make sure people don't park there. He also felt they underestimated the time used by patrons. That could still be the case with a retail establishment. So we don't have the studies. We don't have the data to do this. That's not good planning for us to adopt a regulation without having the data. Has it been demonstrated that it would serve the general health and welfare? I just stated that on the other one, the zone change. It would affect property values. A lot of these criteria are the same for both the zone change and the text amendment. And it would create more undue traffic congestion. So I think this is a very unusual application because you're seeking a zone change, but also changing the regulations for the entire downtown. We don't have the studies. We don't have the data. We know there are problems. We drive down there every day. This commission needs to put on its planning hat and do proper, responsible planning. We should not feel pressured to adopt such an expansive, profoundly change to our regulations without getting the research we need done. We should not feel pressured that somebody needs it for one application, so we're going to pass it. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Levy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to weigh in on each individual point. My feelings are that in general, this is a well-designed, architecturally speaking, from a visual standpoint, it's a well-designed project. It's a vast improvement over what's there, the existing vacant lot and cigar store. And we are talking about development along the Post Road, basically a commercial area. But it's also an area that we have been looking at, not just in connection with this project, but something we've been talking about for the 7 years that I've been on this commission. And when we're dealing with something like a zone change, we're not talking just about the individual project, but we're dealing with what is the comprehensive plan, which generally satisfies interests and the best interests of the community as a whole. And when I think of the community as a whole, I think of this town of Fairfield, which has changed so much in the last 7 years. I have, daughter, son-in-law who are teachers, one in Fairfield, one in Westport. They're living in Trumbull. There is no way they could afford to live in Fairfield right now. And what sort of community is this where the people that serve us, our police, our fire, our teachers, cannot afford to live among us? And I think the proposal to have 20% affordable at the 80% rate will allow that. In addition, it'll allow our neighbors from surrounding communities, whether Bridgeport or even as far as Norwalk, give them perhaps the opportunity to share in the privileges and benefits of living in this community. Personally, again, in terms of the plan of conservation development, when we're talking about a zone change, it is advisory. It's an important document. It's one we must consider. But again, we're driven by the overriding comprehensive plan for the community. And that comprehensive plan includes all the work we did in the TOD, which addressed many of these changes, both in that area as well as contemplating it being done in the center design district. So it's not a question of lack of study or being driven by this single proposal, but this is consistent in moving us forward along the lines we've been talking about and planning to move forward to for the last 7 years. I see it not as one where we're dealing with just a small parcel, but one that is the impetus for us to move forward, to make the changes that are necessary, not just for this community, well, basically for the community as a whole. Now, I've ridden through Lindbergh, I've ridden my bike through the area a number of times, not recently, but over the years, and driven through, in the winter. And if ever there's an area, I live in an area where I've got sidewalks fronting, I'm on a corner lot with sidewalks. And certainly that adds to making a community much more walkable and livable. If ever there's an area in town that would benefit from petitioning the town to put in sidewalks and increase the infrastructure, this sure qualifies. And I am hoping that unfortunately, that's not before us or within our budget or possible for us to do. But I would think that should this plan go in and should the zone change, go through, that this will be an impetus for the town to focus on this area and put in the improvements that should be done to improve and make this a very livable, walkable neighborhood. And should that be done, and even with this proposal going in, I suspect that you will find that property values will increase. I think while in the setbacks may be limited to 10 feet, the proposal as far as the screening and the general design will be a positive for the area. As far as I'm concerned, I think in terms of the needs of the community as a whole, that this is a zone change and text amendments that should be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ford, you or me?
Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I think ultimately in the end, I would be in favor of the applications that are before us. We have been doing a lot of planning, and not just recently with this POCD, but in general. These regulation amendments were not drafted, solely by the applicant. These were all coming out of our 2019 TOD study, which this commission adopted, at least the recommendations from it. The idea of extending outside our downtown into this area has also been mentioned in our current POCD. It's been discussed in our, planning development, our draft one. We have done a lot of work that is somewhat culminated in this application. So, I believe this is a culmination of work that has been previously been done. The applicant rightfully looked to what we have been looking at and doing for its application. It is an important, I think, update to modernize our regulations, to implement what we have been studying for years now. I think the exclusion of the restaurants parking requirement is a fair decision by this commission. We had all, I think the public certainly and then public's expert certainly put forth a compelling reason why that area was not conducive for a restaurant. And as this is going to be new in the area, and with the applicants conceding the point, I think it's a fair stepping stone to that. with having retail be more of the what's the word, balancing of the parking. The parking ratio that at least currently is gonna be there has worked in other areas, and has not really led to on-street parking. So with the parking requirements that are there, um, we, taking out the restaurant, parking, regulation amendment, or at least the proposed amendment, in our past experience and past studies, I think we're gonna be fine with parking. The traffic study, I don't see that this project is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. There are issues with, and currently with the, traffic in that area. At the same time, though, the state's, as I understand it, reducing 2 lanes to 1. So, with their recent, studies and determinations. We're also, as Commissioner Braun rightfully said, seeing a lot of 830G applications companion to these type of regulation amendments. And I think effective, good planning is to consider that certainly our current regulations don't meet what the market is demanding at this point, and certainly not to the past studies that we've been doing. But if not this, Commissioner Braun said, and I don't think unfairly, that either through us or through the courts, 830G applications are generally approved. And looking ahead and seeing what that application could be, and based on the opposition of the neighbors and what they focused on, it's hard to, going with, again, Commissioner Braun's very fair, connotative, and, a superficial thought process of how 830Gs survive. I think the 830G application would be much more detrimental to the neighbors. And I think this commission, should be focusing on effective and efficient planning. And I think that these proposals do that, again, based on work that we've previously done. Especially if with the 830G, you lose the commercial aspect of it, which would be even, worse for the town in general, potentially at that point. So I adopt and agree with Commissioner Porcillo, Commissioner Randolph's thoughts with the specific points. I'm following Commissioner Levy's generalizations more so, but I adopt and I believe that these zoning amendments and the regulation, the map change and the zoning regulations meet the standards that we go towards. I mean, just in sum, I think these are implementing regulations that we've previously studied, this commission has adopted, and I think it's responsible for us to implement them as we've studied them in the past. Because the alternative is either keeping things as they are, and at this point being threatened with a project that I suspect everyone, this commission, and the other neighbors would favor much less than what's currently here. And this commission has seen that with other applications and other sites. As far as the 830G companion one, which the applicant feels forced to do so in the alternative, and fairly so. So for all those reasons, I would approve this, at least the zone change and the regulation amendments. Commissioner Ford?
Mr. Chair? Yeah,
Go
so briefly, I'm not going to belabor the points. I'm going to start at what I was going to conclude with. I would approve the project, but minus the restaurant. And would there be any consideration to amend the motion to, include retail, but not a restaurant? The reason why I say that.
The current motion does not include the parking requirements for the restaurant, which they need.
Okay, that's fine. So if there's no restaurant, I feel a little bit better because the retail at least will close at a reasonable hour and won't, keep people awake all night with diners coming and going. So I'll get to my remarks and I'm going to sound like a broken record a little bit, but because I've said this before, but it appears that based on the results of our most recent municipal election here in Fairfield, that you can almost argue there's a mandate for these types of developments in town. We had candidates that ran for state representatives on a platform of reforming General Statute Section 8-30G. But the voters of Fairfield rejected both candidates, and as a result, their platform of reforming 8-30Gs and similar types of predatory applications. Obviously, as we all know, elections have consequences. Now, this is not an 8-30G application, but the developers have, as the chair pointed out, an 8-30G application to develop the site in the event this application is denied. The fact that there is a concurrent 8-30G application regarding the site does not color my decision regarding this application. Rather, it is noteworthy for the public to understand that in the event this application is denied, there could be a much larger and more intrusive structure built on this site if an 8-30 application comes to fruition. So I'm not in love with the design. It's really not my taste. I wish it had a little bit more of a New England feel, but that's not that's my own opinion. And obviously, we can all disagree on design. I'm more comfortable with retail and not a restaurant. That was my biggest concern. I just didn't. The building's going to be a burden, no matter if it's an 8-30G or as designed, regardless to the small neighborhood. And if there was a restaurant on top of it, it really would be intrusive, and that would be offensive to me. So I would vote to approve this application so long as there's no restaurant.
Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, I just, maybe Commissioner Corsillo, who made the motion about the restaurant, can you just clarify what it is exactly?
Yeah, the motion was pertaining to the regulation amendments and excluded the proposed amendment that would have reduced the parking requirements for restaurant uses.
So I think
So that just would not be part of what's being voted on.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Braun has an additional question.
Commissioner Braun.
Just want to highlight a couple things. This is jumping the gun on the POCD. We've been holding discussions over this section of the post road going back a year and a half now. We don't have a consensus. I personally am not in favor of extending 52-foot tall buildings with 10-foot setbacks all the way down to Mill River on both sides of the post road. That's a point of discussion on the POCD. We should play out the POCD process and not jump the gun and pass a regulation that would create an anchor for that right here at this location, as well as enable that same scale and density in the downtown district, which again goes from beach to bungalow. Right now, Jim Wen has told me many times, we don't see a lot of 52-foot tall buildings because of floor area ratio requirements, parking requirements, et cetera. If we pass this regulation, you will start seeing buildings that dwarf the community theater, for example, which is kind of the icon for our town. You will also see much more traffic volume. None of that traffic calming lane closing of the DOT is going to reduce traffic volume. This will not reduce traffic volume. It will add traffic volume. We're getting a moratorium on 8-30G. Yes, this one came in before it was granted. So this will go, the one on this one, but we should not be considering other projects. That has no merit in our discussion today. Each project rises and falls on the facts and circumstances of each project. I think arguably this would be worse than the 8-30G that's sitting in the background waiting for a hearing. And we have, yeah, true, 80% get approved probably. It all depends on the facts, whether an expert witness was retained that can, provide evidence to this commission of harm to public health and safety. Obviously, we cannot use our own regulations when we review an 8-30G. We're not allowed to. But if there is evidence that's substantial showing safety, issues with safety or health or flooding. And we have experts that prove that. Yeah, we've won cases like that. I can remember one that I was involved with about 10 years ago. So it can happen. It all depends on the facts of that case. This is this case, that is that case. We should not be passing this regulation. We haven't done the research. Neither has the applicant. So to me, it would be irresponsible to pass the regulation or to change this zone. Thank you.
Mr. Harrison?
Yeah, and again, not to belabor this point, but I think Commissioner Braun, you have a great point about, yeah, the 830G is hanging out back there, but we take one application at a time, and an 830G would pass or fail based on its own merits and circumstances, and obviously that burden is on this commission to pass it. So we need just to do proper planning in this town. I remember when Attorney Green came here and spoke about, we were kind of at a tipping point, and I agree with him, and I think he made a really good point. We have to do more expansive planning. I know I can't responsibly pass a regulation that would cover from the beach road to the bungalow. That's just the traffic conditions and just a lack of study. I mean, we don't have to be forced to do anything because there is another application on this. Anyway, I do appreciate the good discussion from this commission. I know people have put a lot of thought into this. But I don't think we should think about the 830G. That's just extortion. That's nothing I want to think about. We have to think about this application that's before us. Thank you.
We put this to a vote? Okay. Let us start with 3A, the zone change portion of it. That needs to be 5 votes.
All that, please.
Well, let's see. I mean, we're gonna know, 6 of us are gonna be able to be raising our hands, and then we're gonna know who's speaking, I think. Current motion is to approve 3A. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
That's 5. All those opposed? Assuming that was Braun. Commissioner Braun opposed, correct?
Correct. Opposed.
So motion passes 5-2. Next item is 3B. Motion to adopt except for the parking, which again is
Section 28.6.12.
so that is not part of the motion to adopt. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed? I think that was Commissioner Braun opposed, correct?
Opposed.
So that passes. Next item, which we had not talked about, is the special permits and coastal site plan application of Sunshine Acquisition Group LLC pertaining to a proposed mixed-use commercial residential building. Ms. Harrigan has already given staff comments to that. Thank you. I have a motion on the item. Commissioner Porcello,
Move to approve.
is there a second? Commissioner Randolph seconds. Commissioner Porcello.
I won't belabor it. I mean, I essentially, the criteria is a bit different, but I think my previous comments on the regulation and zoning change apply here too. So let those comments speak for themselves here.
Commissioner Randolph.
Nothing to add. Well, I'll add just a slight comment that I think that the applicant's flexibility in agreeing to setbacks to change the restaurant to really try to accommodate the concerns of the community have been actions and activities that are not to be taken for granted, and attempt to accommodate the neighbors, some of the neighbors' concerns.
Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, I'd simply like to add that, based on the record, that the property does not directly border any coastal areas. And the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection has commended the applicant for their integration of the stormwater management system into the project.
Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, I just have a few comments on the coastal site plan review. While the property, as stated, is not abut the coastline, it is close enough that it will probably overflow into the Mill River and given that obviously flows into the Southport Harbor, which begins at Harbor Road. A scan 800 feet or so downstream from the Post Road River crossing. As pointed out by the engineer retained by the neighbors, there's inadequate stormwater management resulting in a system that will enable pollutants to probably end up in Mill River and Southport Harbor. Testing was inadequate. There was used percolation tests, but 2014 stormwater manual says it can't rely on percolation tests when infiltration test fits are required. Another point, groundwater too high with this design. Galleries for infiltration lining the east and south side, they fill in series one after the other. Overflow into the last one, which is a level spreader near the property line. But the calculations at peak elevation water shows about 1.5 above bottom of the infiltrator. So the infiltrator is underwater. It will not allow the water to infiltrate. And again, there were just some inconsistencies and errors found in the various components of the drainage storm report. Parking lot drainage, again, errors in those plans, an easy fix, but I think that there were just there that just did not satisfy what I needed to say. Thank you.
Jen,
Commissioner Braun.
can you clarify, are we just doing coastal site review or are we doing the special permit?
Both.
Oh, I got to special permit then. I didn't realize.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Harrison. Let Commissioner Braun, Commissioner Harrison's gonna finish, but it's gonna be both special permit and coastal
Sorry, I
site
didn't
plan.
realize that they were combined. So the special permit, yeah. So again, those considerations are not satisfied. The burden is on the applicant to supply the information to justify the special permit. This application contained not so neat, kind of sloppy practices and missing information. And several corrections and changes had to be made throughout the public hearing. For example, the applicant misstated the impervious surface that would result with the new development. The plans indicated that the impervious surface would be 70% of the 0.7 acre site, but that didn't match the architectural plans, that indicated 76%. But the engineer retained by the neighbors also reassessed it and found that the true impervious surface would be about 80%. This required the applicant to then provide corrected information. The impervious surface is now calculated at almost 82% of the site. I just wanted to put that in the record.
Commissioner Braun.
Yes, just going through the criteria for the regulation, for the special permit. Well, I guess now it might conform with the zoning regulations, but I oppose changing our regulations or changing the zone. It certainly did not comply with our prior zoning regulations until tonight. And it certainly does not harmonize with the neighborhood. It is residential and commercial, but it's modern style. It does not fit into the New England aesthetic as some of the other commercial buildings do up the road there. It also is huge and starkly contrasts with the neighborhood behind it. And it's way too close. So it does not harmonize. It does not accomplish a transition in areas of unlike character. It would need to be smaller scale. And I remember on the concept review, I mentioned this, I don't know, it must have been a year ago. Make it smaller, move it farther from the houses. That didn't happen. The footprint is the same and it's extremely close to the houses. You basically have an alleyway and an open to the public plaza facing the neighbors. Completely unacceptable. That is not the way to transition. It does not protect property values. I went through that before. This, I believe, will destroy that neighborhood. There will be a lot more traffic going in and out. The narrow little roads cannot accommodate it. So whether it's retail or restaurant, it's going to be a nightmare and it's going to create a safety hazard. When I was driving through the neighborhood quite a few times in the last few months, there were always kids in the streets. You had to go about 15 miles an hour. We heard evidence about cut throughs, people getting off the highway, people needing then to get off the post road. They go through this neighborhood. This will make that all worse. And changing the regulations a third of the mile up the road, adding more density will make it even on steroids worse. I don't think it will enhance the appearance and beauty of the community because this is a residential community. This is a community that borders on the commercial area. The way to enhance the appearance and beauty is to blend in. Maybe the front can look more modern, but the back should look more New England. I don't know how you do it if you're an architect, but I don't think this blends in. I don't think it enhances. Undue traffic congestion, I already covered. Regarding coastal site plan review, I do not believe, if you don't have adequate or proper testing that shows the drainage system will work, then it won't work and it can overflow. And if it overflows, you'll have toxins and pollutants that are not treated adequately entering our stormwater system, which I believe will go right into either Mill River or Pine Creek. I'm not sure which direction it goes, but either way, it goes into Long Island Sound. And as Commissioner Harrison pointed out, the south part of the post road is probably only about 800 feet away from where Southport Harbor begins, which is at Harbor Road. So we can't afford mistakes by adding, 80% impervious surface from what's there now and having something that does not have adequate testing to prove that it will work. So I don't believe it satisfies the coastal site plan review, but it certainly does not satisfy the special permit review. Thank you.
Thank you. I do believe it meets the criteria for the special permit. I've talked about traffic. I think it's a commercial area. I think the style of the building sufficiently harmonizes with the area. It's certainly a bigger than the residential behind it. I don't believe that's enough to say it doesn't harmonize. Like I said, I think it's a good project for this, and I would agree with adopting previous statements. The last applications here. Anything further? Commissioner Ford, anyone else, or can we put this
Nothing to add.
put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed,
Opposed?
passes 5-2. Thank you for the good discussion, everyone. Moving on to our compliance 4185. Black Rock Pike. Now we take a
I think, ma'am, your camera's on.
Essentially.
I had it on mute.
Thank
Do you want me just to repeat that? I'm sorry, I had it.
Yeah, if you were on mute, why don't we
Okay.
repeat that? I didn't realize that.
Sorry, my apologies. 4185 Black Rock Turnpike. This is a sign compliance review for the signage for Hartford Healthcare. The sign regulations read for this section that the signage cannot face the Merritt Parkway, cannot be oriented towards the Merritt Parkway. So we are asking the commission for this application to determine whether they feel that this signage is oriented towards the Merritt Parkway or is low enough in its placement on the building that it won't be visible from the Merritt Parkway and therefore is not oriented towards the Merritt Parkway and can be acceptable the way that it's provided by the applicant in this application package and is shown on the site plan that you can see.
Can you
On
read
the screen.
the full regulation, please?
Yep.
Or at least the sentence or two that we're really focused on.
Sorry, I'm just.
Section is again.
Well,
29
yeah.
point.
Is it 29.8.2? Sorry,
Yep, it's.
so 29.8.2.
So the 29.8.2 Connecticut Turnpike and Merritt Parkway, where a lot abuts the right of way or access road of the Connecticut Turnpike or Merritt Parkway, no sign on such lot shall be erected which faces or is primarily intended to be visible from the Connecticut Turnpike or Merritt Parkway as the case may be. So the question that you have before you, and I'm going to go to the signage that is oriented on the building, is whether the signage that is proposed, generally at the first story of the building, so about 15 feet above grade, whether the signage you believe is oriented to be visible from the Merritt Parkway.
Well, the language is no sign on such lot shall be erected which faces or is primarily intended to be visible from the Merritt Parkway.
From the, yep,
So it's more about Connecticut Turnpike 95. So that's kind of the determination we may need to make.
correct.
Is it? So, okay,
Faces, yeah.
so one or the other.
Question.
Let's get a motion on the table first.
And there's, if I could
Oh,
clarify,
if you have
there's
more, go
actually,
ahead.
there's actually two portions of the signage. There is the signage that is in the curved glass portion of the building. And then there is the signage that is facing the parking lot, which you can see by this red number 2, as well as the monument sign, which meets the required setback requirements from Black Rock Turnpike, which is shown as item number 1. And let me just scroll down really quickly so you can see that signage. That's the monument sign. We do require them to have the site address on the signage, and the size of the signage meets the requirements. And then this is the signage that is over the door that faces the parking lot.
I think it's fair to say, the monument and the one towards the parking lot, staff believes complies with our regulations.
Correct.
Okay. So I see 1 and 2 on the current plans are the ones that staff believes is compliant. It's the one on the curved, well, it's not really numbered on that well.
It's on this separate.
Yeah, it's on the separate one. So I mean, I suspect the motion should, well, let's get a motion on and then we can discuss it.
Are you voting on this still?
compliance, so yes. I mean, we can table it if you wish, I
No,
guess.
no, I was just
Yeah.
curious.
Just to get it going, move to approve the sign as proposed.
All three?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second?
Do we need to prove the three or just the number?
Well, that's it's all three we have to approve. There's, you see 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So the current motion is approving all three. Now, we can discuss that. Because I think, can we get is there a second? Let me start with there. Okay, second, Commissioner Corsillo, thank you. But I'll get you, Commissioner Levy, in a second, sorry, but 1 and 2, staff is saying complies in their opinion, again, up to us.
And sorry, you can see the 1 and 2 here, they're just not red.
Yes, and then it's the three, the red, that's, I think, the commission, I'm sorry, the applicant and the staff have not come to an agreement on, and all three are up to our discretions, but I think this, well, in any case, the focus is probably on 3, but Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, looking at the regulation, taking it, parsing it a bit, where a lot of butts the right of way or access road at the Connecticut Turnpike or Merritt Parkway. Well, it does abut the entrance ramp, the northbound entrance ramp of the Merritt Parkway, so it certainly meets that requirement. It says no sign on such lot shall be erected which faces or is primarily intended to be visible from the Connecticut Turnpike or Merritt Parkway, as the case may be. But let's start with the second half of that. Is it primarily intended to be visible from the Connecticut Turnpike or Merritt Parkway? Well, obviously Merritt Parkway, you can't see it from the Turnpike. of
Yeah,
course.
just don't worry about the term. I
We're
mean,
just talking about the
Merritt
Parkway.
yeah, please.
As a practical matter, I'd say that is not a concern because this sign cannot be seen by any northbound traffic. As I came off that exit recently, you just can't see, if you're going northbound, you're not going to see the sign. You are going to certainly see it if you're getting off the southbound Merritt Parkway exit there. I think it's 44 since they renumbered it, where you're, looking to get onto Black Rock Turnpike, you're going to be looking right at it. So the question is really what it turns on in our discretion is, does this sign face the Merritt Parkway? And the thing is, it's at a 45-degree angle to the Merritt Parkway. If they put it on the southern portion of the building, clearly that would face the Merritt Parkway because it would be running directly parallel to the Merritt Parkway. But this is, number one, it's on an area that's at a 45-degree angle. It's also within a curved area, which makes it more difficult to see. And it is fairly low on the building, unlike, the huge billboard that was before us previously. So in terms of the strict, interpretation of faces, I would say it being at an angle, it does not specifically face, well, it certainly doesn't face northbound traffic on the Merritt Parkway. And it is askew to the southbound traffic. So based on that, I would say it meets our regulations and should be approved.
Commissioner Corsillo seconded, and then I saw Commissioner Braun had a question, so.
I don't have much to add to that thorough analysis of the verbiage there. I think short of doing some ultra sophisticated diagram of where exactly which direction it's oriented and confirming specifically if it's facing. I mean, I generally concur with Commissioner Levy's interpretation.
Commissioner Braun, then Randolph.
Question for Ms. Harrigan. How is this different from the regulation we just rejected? How much smaller is it than what they were proposing? And how much lower is it?
Size complies with our
Yes,
regulation.
the size complies, so there's not a regulation amendment as part of this proposal.
So my reading of the regulation is where a lot abuts the right of way or access road, which it does to the Merritt, it cannot be erected if it faces or is primarily intended to be visible. So the question I have is, A, is it facing, and B, is it primarily intended to be visible? I don't know why it would be there if it wasn't primarily intended to be visible from the Merritt Parkway. Who else is going to see it? What is it for, if not the Merritt Parkway? Is there, can you show the aerial or the like overhead view to see exactly which direction it's facing in? It looks like it's facing the Merritt right there. So if either one of those fails, then it fails the regulation.
No, the opposite, but it has to meet one of those for it to fail, yeah.
Well, it says you can't erect it if it faces the Merritt or is primarily intended to be visible from the Merritt. It faces the Merritt, it seems to me, and it's intended to be visible from the Merritt.
Okay.
That's what it looks like to me.
Commissioner Randolph?
I was strongly opposed to the previous sign because it was intended to be seen from the Merritt Parkway. Given the position of this sign on the building and the small size, I think the intent is not for it to be seen from, and I know this corner very well. I don't think you could see this from the Merritt Parkway except under, you know, unusual circumstances. So the intent of this appears to be to perhaps address Commissioner Braun's question, is to be seen from Black Rock Turnpike. So I think this does meet the criteria, and I appreciate the applicant's accommodation of our requirements. I guess my only question is, does this set a precedent for future, if this building became multi-tenanted? Do we set any precedent to continue to have other signs in this building, or would that have to come up as a separate consideration?
I mean, they would come to us in a compliance, but I mean, you're saying that this sign complies. You know, we don't normally set precedents in general. We always obviously want to be consistent and fair. It'd be hard to. I mean, it'd be, if this became multi-tenant, it'd be hard to say that the second tenant can't have a sign in this area. You know what I mean?
That's not likely to occur. This
Yeah.
glass curvature area, it's really a singular space.
No,
So
true, but I mean, if it does happen, to hit the hypothetical, it's, you know, I don't know how, I
If we
mean,
had 10 tenants in there, could they put 10 signs up? That's what I would want to avoid. So,
they could only do it if they actually have frontage on the street.
oh, fair point, okay.
who had frontage?
Tenants.
Tenant.
So if you are an interior tenant on a multi-tenant building, you're not permitted signage. You can be part of the directory when you walk in the door, but you can't have exterior signage if you don't actually
Yeah,
lease a portion of the building that has exterior
It
frontage.
seems like a remote possibility to raise. So I just to repeat my position, I think that this meets the intent of the ordinance. It's not this sign, based upon my understanding of the site and the height of the building, would not be visible from the Merritt Parkway. So I support
Yeah, okay.
I support the application.
Fair enough. I mean, I was the lone wolf, so to speak, with the initial regulation amendment. It's hard for me to sit here and look at the third one and say it doesn't face the Merritt Parkway. That's where I'm getting hung up on. Again, I would have granted that way back. It wasn't a billboard. It's the sign. I thought, you know, for all the reasons, but if the regulations are standing, whether it's intended or not, I don't want to get there because that's a tough one, and you know, I probably want to see more. It's just hard to say it doesn't face though. And I know it's 45-degree angles. I think it's a judgment call. I think it faces. I mean, yeah, I certainly can't see it northbound. I get that, but I just see it faces. It does, you know, still see it from one, and it faces the Merritt. I'd approve 1 and 2, but not 3. I'm not pleased about it, but that's my read on it. Feel free not to follow because I think.
Are you offering a friendly amendment to change it?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. I don't want them to have their sign, so, but I can't. No, I mean, I
What-
just,
what's the exact wording?
right now it's the approved, the compliance, all three signs.
I don't think the
Facing-
ordinance.
Oh, I'm
facing
sorry.
Primarily intended to be visible.
Yeah.
Hold on, Commissioner, did you have?
Yeah, I can do it again.
I want to jump in? Did you have your hand
No,
up?
I have no issues with the sign and the last time we talked about when they had the change back in February, we got a lot of feedback from the community, including the Merritt Parkway Conservancy. And there's no pushback or issues from them, and I certainly value their opinion on this, just given the proximity to the Merritt Parkway. So I would vote in favor of this. And I appreciate the accommodation from the applicant.
Commissioner Braun?
We make it not lit up at night, because this is like a brightly lit sign facing the Merit. It will be visible certainly at night.
I don't know what basis we have for that. If you're saying that the sign, the lighting, the size, and everything's compliance,
I would offer this, if you drive by there at night, the building is lit up like Las Vegas at night. So it doesn't matter if the sign is, I'm just saying.
have a sign or
That's
not.
the reality of it, and it's not a good thing. I'm not in favor of it. And I wish they would not have the lights on, Mr. Russo. But, so that's just personal take.
Commissioner Levy?
See the little tongue.
Yeah. And the faces is usually the front of your face, not the side of your face.
I don't know, everybody says get my good side, so.
Your side.
I don't know, yeah. Front of your face is normally your good side, it's off to the side. I'm not gonna belabor the point. I don't mind going down again. Anything further? Can we put this to a vote? Current motion is that all three signs, to approve all three signs as being compliance. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
I don't see Commissioner Ford.
No, he dropped off. I'm
Oh, he
sorry. I did see that. Commissioner Delgado, you jumped in. I'm sorry. So let me take a step back. I apologize. Commissioner Delgado, you're jumping in for Commissioner Ford. And I didn't give you that courtesy. I apologize. Any thoughts? You're now going to jump in the vote, or, let me.
For all that.
Well, let me ask you this, Commissioner Delgado, last time I said, it was just the move to public hearing, and I wasn't gonna hold that, so you didn't get a chance to vote on something substantive in the future. You have 6, we just had a discussion, I don't wanna have you come in late, so to speak, if you felt like the discussion passed you by. Do you wanna join in now, or do you wanna we've got 6 moving forward. I'll leave it up to you, so, cause I apologize, Dan texted me and I just forgot what the implication of that was.
Is it possible to pass it to Commissioner Siebert?
Commissioner Siebert, do you wanna jump in as 7?
I have no problem with it.
Okay, come on in.
Thank you for the invitation. I've been looking at this thing. I drive up the Merritt Parkway, north, south. I don't see an issue with it, honestly.
That's fine.
I really don't. I look at the High Hotel. I really don't see an issue. And Commissioner Harrison mentioned the building is the building and it's there, right? It's very visible even without the signage issue. So I'm good.
Okay, that's fair. All right, Commissioner Siebert, you're in for Commissioner Ford. All those in favor of the motion, again, all 3 signs comply, please say aye or raise your hand. All opposed?
Just
Is that opposed, Commissioner Braun?
correct.
Okay, wasn't sure. So it passes 5-2.
I'll call Jim and tell
Thank
him. Thank you.
It's earlier.
Without prejudice?
Yeah, it's earlier where he is. He should be in Utah right now.
Yeah.
All right, our public hearing, 1427 and 1443 Kings Highway. Special permit application of John and Timothy Philbin pertaining to the construction of an 18-unit residential building in the design commercial district, commercial commerce drive district. Attorney
Uh,
Fowler. evening.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. First of all, I want to thank you for your courtesy in allowing me to appear before you virtually tonight. I appreciate it, as does my family. But we're pleased to be here tonight and look forward to seeing you again in person soon. The property here is 427, 443 Kings Highway. It is located in the design commercial district. It's part of the Commerce Drive area district overlay. It comprises in total 13,498 square feet. It's been owned for many years by John and Timothy Philbin. The Philbins are local developers, which, as many of you may know, very strong roots in the community going back generations. What is proposed tonight and what we will share with you along with my colleague Pat Rose is the construction of an 18-unit residential structure in accordance with the provisions of the zoning regulations. 2 of those units will be deed restricted as affordable for a period of 40 years. As conceived by Pat Rose, who I'll call on in a minute, I think the building is architecturally very attractive and is a significant and obviously positive catalyst to the continued development of this area, including the Commerce Drive area design district and the immediately adjacent transportation-oriented design district. I think the most important thing about this application, and harking back to some comments I heard earlier tonight by a number of commissioners, is these units, the affordable and the market rate units at this location, are going to provide much needed housing alternatives, especially for people over the age of 50 and younger people. These are people who either have roots in Fairfield or want to establish roots in Fairfield. They want to come with their talents, their pocketbooks, their participation, and it's very, very difficult for them to find units of housing in our town. And that does have benefit, as I pointed out in my statement of use, in addition generally, but also specifically to town employees such as police, fire, and teachers. This is an especially, I think, attractive location, taking into consideration the direct proximity to the Fairfield Black Rock train station. Due to the proximity of the train station, and when the Philbins looked at ultimately what they wanted to do with this building, they determined they wanted to do a purely residential development. Back in, I think it was 2016, there was the approval of a mixed-use building at this location that involved 3 units of housing on the upper floors and retail below. That didn't prove to be particularly attractive or feasible. And so the Philbins went back to reconsider what they could do. Because they wanted to do a fully residential development, we did go to the Zoning Board of Appeals in December of last year, 2024, and we did receive a variance unanimously from the Zoning Board of Appeals of section 12.14.18 to allow an increase in the permitted residential use from 70%, as the regulations pertain to in the Commerce Drive area design district, to fully residential building, and to allow also residential use on the ground floor of the structure. And those variances, as I said, were granted unanimously. I would point out that no other variance except for the parking variance, which I'll discuss momentarily, were sought, and the building that's before you tonight will comply with all other provisions of the regulations as they pertain to such things as lot coverage and floor area ratio. Now, the ZBA also granted in December a variance of section 28.6.1 to reduce the required parking as shown on your plans before you tonight to 24 spaces. I think what completely convinced the ZBA in this regard is this property is immediately adjacent to the transit-oriented development district, and it would otherwise be included in the transit-oriented development district, but for the fact that pursuant to section 13.14.4, there's a current provision that says in order to be part of a transit-oriented development district, you must have a minimum of 35,000 square feet. And as I said earlier, this lot has 13,000 plus. It should also be pointed out, as I pointed out to the ZBA in December, that your current draft plan of conservation and development recommends that the minimum lot size for a TOD park overlay property be reduced to 10,000 square feet. So what I'm saying is, and what I said to the ZBA, but for the size of the lot, this would be a TOD property. And if you should adopt, in accordance with your present draft plan, an amendment that makes the requirement for a TOD park property at 10,000 square feet, it would be in that zone. Why is that important? It was important to the ZBA because under section 13.14.6, the number of parking spaces required for residential use in the TOD is the lesser of 1 parking space per bedroom or 1.2 parking spaces per household. And if you apply that to this particular property and this proposal, you come up with a parking requirement of 22.5, round that up to 23, and we in fact provide 24. So the board found that to be persuasive in that they found that the standard established by section 32.14.6 does establish a basis for finding sufficiency for parking for residential use in this immediate area and the Commerce Drive Area Design District. And we hope you will agree with that because we're very comfortable that this will be a proper parking. And indeed, if and when the regulations were to change and a TOD property would be established at 10,000 square feet, then this would be part of the TOD and that regulation would apply without need for a variance. Having said that, we have Pat Rose with us tonight. I'm going to ask Pat to give you a brief overview of the architectural design of the building, which we're very pleased with, as I hope you will agree when you see the rendering that Pat's going to display. And then I'll have a few follow-up summary comments. Pat.
Good evening, commission members. Emmeline, could you bring up the exhibits? Thank you. What you have before you is the site plan for the project, having the Ash Creek Boulevard on the left-hand side and constant comment on the right-hand side, King in the border on Kings Highway. We are showing the building going over the top of our parking. So the parking is below the building. We have the 3-story building above that parking. There are 24 spaces on the ground floor. They include 1 accessible space. They also include bike rack area. And then there is a dumpster container in the rear left-hand corner. The height of the building is such that we can get 10 feet underneath the building so that we can have a low boy trash pickup. And we could also have entrance of a delivery truck to stop and then be able to circumnavigate and get out of there and underneath the parking. So we thought about that. The lobby is entered off of the sidewalk. And then you have an elevator there. Into a stairway that comes down into that lobby, and then a secondary stair to the rear that exits out. And there's a sprinkler, electric, and mechanical rooms in that little core that's in the center of the building. Go ahead. The drainage we have, this had initially gone to back in 2017, I think it is. It went to wetlands, was approved to wetlands. We have subsurface drainage, and that she's outlining it right there in the rear of the site. Eventually there is an outlet to the retention pond that is part of the train station. But most of our drainage is going to be filtering into the subsurface groundwater table. We have a downstream defender, which is a swirl separator, and then there's a control structure before something would outlet. So we're retaining a significant amount of water with this design. There's a drainage report which the town engineer has reviewed previously and found it acceptable. Go ahead to the next one is just a soil erosion control plan, which we have essentially the hay bales and silt fence all the way around the project. We have a stone drive-off mat in one of the driveways, so we can control. They had done a lot of work on this site because there were some unsuitable soils at one time, and those have been removed, and compacted gravel has been put in, so we've got a good firm foundation basis for the project. Go ahead, Ramon. We have a planting plan where we have some street trees along Kings Highway and then some smaller trees along the edge of the property. And to the rear, that is already a rather robust grown retention basin and wetlands area, so we haven't really added much to that. It's already existing. If you want to just spin through the couple detail sheets of the drainage, sidewalks, and then we have the floor plan for the ground floor, which shows the lobby, the elevator, 2 stairways, sprinkler electric and gas meters, and then the 24 parking spaces and the bike storage area and dumpster. The typical floor plan, first through third, consists of 6 2-bedroom units on each floor. There are 4 in the center section on front and the back, and then 1 on the right side, 1 on the left side. Each one of those has 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, their own washer dryer, and own mechanical closet in them, so they're self-contained. The size of those units range from 910 square feet to 961 square feet. So they're all relatively the same size. That is a typical, they're all 2 bedrooms. This is the elevation of the building. What we've got is we've created these screen walls along Kings Highway to hide the cars to some degree. They're stone, and brings a stone back into the entrance of the building in the center. And then we have a brick facade that is the rest of it, except where we have these bay windows on either side, which are an ephes material that stands out from what the brick material is. We've incorporated arched windows. We've used brackets at the roof, and the Philbins wanted it to emulate to some degree an older train station, considering its location. There is a mansard roof up to a height, and all of the mechanical units would be behind that mansard roof, so they would not be visible. So if you want to go on to the side elevation, it's just brick essentially with windows and brick cornice above each window, brick sill, and brick bands. And rear is similar to what the front is, except that the lobby does not come down in that area. And this other side is similar to what the other side is. But you want to pull up that other, yep, there we go. Probably have to shrink it a little bit. Let's see it all.
It does not shrink.
That's it.
Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Well, this is the rendering of the building. The majority of it is brick, except for those 2 bay windows, the arched windows underneath the gables. And you've got brick sills, brick heads, and the brackets on the mansard roof. And you can see the stone at the entryway and at those screen walls along the parking lot. I think it's a very handsome building. It may be different than some of the other housing that's been built there, but I believe it, considering its scale, I think it is a very, very human scale building as opposed to some of the other buildings that have been built in that area.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate it. Emmeline, you could actually leave that rendering up there because I think it's better looking than me. So if that's not too much.
No, go grab one.
Well, I'm sorry, but
No, go ahead.
Yeah, well, basically they say one picture is worth 1,000 words, and we're the Philbins and Pat and myself, to the extent I've had any small involvement, are very proud of this building. Obviously, you all know the area here. The residential development that has occurred here has been a very strong catalyst for the development of this part of town. It's allowed us to address housing needs very proximate to our train station over there. And it's one of the more exciting things that I think has and is continuing to happen over the last decade and a half in our part of town. As Pat said, this building, although not large by the standards of some of the others, I think sets a very, very high bar for the aesthetics that it brings to this area. I think it's a very handsome building. It has been, as Pat indicates, we do have an inland wetlands permit in place. It's been reviewed by the engineering department. It's been reviewed, obviously, by the fire department. So I think it's a great proposal, and I don't have much more to add, except that I think it is very much in harmony with the purpose and intent of the Commerce Drive Design District. It will have a positive impact on the continuing strong character of that neighborhood, especially with regard to residential development there in conjunction with the train station. And it's going to provide housing diversity that's going to benefit our seniors, benefit our younger people who want to establish or keep roots here, and hopefully will benefit many of our town employees, police, teachers, fire, and others. So we're excited about the proposal. We appreciated the support, enthusiastic support of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we hope we will have your enthusiastic support as well. And we thank you very much. And again, I thank you for allowing us to do this virtually.
Commissioner Braun, then Corsillo.
Yes, it's actually a beautiful building, I have to say, and it's in the right location and the scale is good. My only concerns really have to do with water. And I'm looking at the code review. They're really old, from 2017.
Right.
It's almost like the code review was done on the prior app. Is that possible?
Yeah, I'll let Pat address that.
Okay. Yeah, and yeah, I have a few. Is Pat the architect or the engineer?
They are both.
Yeah.
Rose Tiso is our architects and engineers for the project.
You just run through a couple follow-up questions I came up with.
Sure. Mr.
Okay.
Rose is here to answer any questions you would have.
Is there space under the building for ambulance and EMT to get in? And do they need more than 10 feet?
No, the ambulance can get in, that's not a problem.
And where are the EVs going to, do you have to have EVs? Electric vehicle charging with this size parking lot?
Not required under 30.
Okay, good. The utilities above the building, they're all behind the mansard roof. What again was the height of the building? It looks like it's 3 floors over parking.
Right, it's to the midpoint of the gable, it's 47 feet, 8 inches.
And that's the top of the mansard roof and all the utilities are below that.
Right, and the mansard roof's top of that, it's another 6 or 7 feet above that, so it's plenty of screening.
And all the AC units and HVAC, that's all on the roof also for the individual units.
Correct, it would be inside, behind the mansard.
Impervious surface, do you know how much it's changed? I drove by there. Is that kind of a place that has a lot of lumber and landscaping?
It's
Commercial use?
It's a gravel lot, and sometimes there are trucks and cars parked there.
Okay.
Correct.
What's the change in impervious surface and where are the wetlands on the site? I know you got a permit, but I don't see it in the package. Maybe it's here. I just didn't notice it.
Right, there aren't any wetlands on our site. The wetlands are in proximity to us at the rear of the site where they're.
Really surprised there's any wetlands there at all. It's shocking. I don't know where they would be. Somewhere on the site, there's or near the site, you're within the
Yeah,
100-foot.
there's a small area, Commissioner, of off-site wetlands. That's what gave jurisdiction and the need for the permit.
The one on the Metro Center? Like, is this draining towards the Metro Center? They had to create those wetlands on the Metro Center?
Correct, that's exactly where eventually the overflow would go to. That
And
wetland.
I don't see something from the engineering department, but they approved. So in other words, could you possibly get us the copy of whatever engineering said or whatever conservation said? I'm sure it's fine, but that whole Metro Center drainage system was supposed to actually create an inland wetland and then drain from the Metro Center into that? And maybe, is this feeding into that system then?
I think we.
I don't know the answer. I don't know the answers to that question.
Just
but
curious.
We can get
Or-
the inland wetlands approval that we have.
Yeah, the drainage report is part of the file. We can certainly submit through staff the,
That'd be
if
great.
not part- the wetlands permit as well, yes.
Yeah. Let's see. Were test pits, are you using infiltrators and were test pits done and how far above the groundwater or modeling is the bottom of your drainage system?
Essentially, the entire site now is all gravel, down to about
Okay.
8 feet. So it's a significant drainage area. I don't remember from 2017, when the tests were done or, how they were conducted, but they were done. Because that was part of the reason that we removed some unsuitable soils and put in all gravel.
I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Corsillo?
Thank you. I just had a question about the affordable units. There was a letter that Mark Barnhart had submitted last week.
Yep.
The plan hadn't been filed yet. And then separately, in the plan set on page 9, the third floor core plan was a little confusing because I see 6 units there, and there are 4 that are labeled affordable workforce units. So can you just speak to how the affordable units are going to be, and I'm assuming that the plan will be submitted.
Yes, under the regulations, we're required to have 2 affordable units, so that is the operative number. And as Mr. Barnhart pointed out in his email, certainly if the commission is comfortable with it, we can, as a condition of approval, you could have us establish that we have to submit the plan, affordability plan. On the other hand, I'm happy to have that submitted through staff, before you render a decision on this. It'll be in the standard form that Mr. Barnard and I always apply. But
So are the 4 that are labeled just because it's placeholders and you're not sure yet which ones are going to be the affordable units?
I'll let Pat address the floor plan question, Commissioner. Mr. Rhodes?
Yeah, there's 4 shown. It's also a first through third floor, so we really need to designate which ones they're going to be for the 2, which we can do.
And as part of the affordability plan, we will do that in order to ensure that they are, properly numbered and properly dispersed throughout the building.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Randolph?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. It's good to see something going in the site, which is just currently an eyesore. It's really, this would be a meaningful improvement. A couple of questions, and this is a leading question. Have you considered using parking on the adjacent garages and parking lot across the street have excess parking? I'm just suggesting that perhaps a parking plan using some of those spaces might be an innovation to use unused spaces and then make better use of our precious land, especially in such a critical location, and perhaps improve the effectiveness of this project. So that's just a general question and suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly,
Well, I shall let him.
Yep.
Go.
Okay, go ahead. You're going to respond to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. We obviously we wanted to come up with sufficient on-site parking. And that's why we wanted to show the 24 spaces, which, we believe, and the ZBA concurred, and we hope you will, that is appropriate. There's no doubt that the property across the street is, within our control, and certainly to the extent that it might be beneficial to utilize that from time to time for overflow parking. That's something as we get farther down the development aspect of things, we could certainly work to accommodate any.
Attorney Fallon, the question though is more, instead of giving me 24 parking spaces on site, why not give me 12 and then use maybe give a park there and use 12 across the street. Is that not where
Yeah,
you're
or
going?
just better use, I was actually, the next question was about retail. Or basically better use the ground floor rather than just having it a big garage opening.
The only problem I see there, Commissioner, and I think it's forward thinking in terms of things, is you have to comply with your regulations. And under the, if the regulations were to be amended, but right now I have to provide a requisite number of on-site parking spaces. And that's why we're showing what we're showing, and that's not the same parcel. So, you know, we'd have to, I'm not sure how we would address that.
Sure, I guess I'm just encouraging some creative thinking since there's such an abundance of parking, unused parking in proximity. And a parking plan is you know, you've been coming up with some pretty good ideas. I'm just saying this might be an opportunity to help us push our thinking on how to use unused parking in the area, have a more profitable project for you. And I guess I'd really like to see this ground floor be consistent with the TOD study. Because the TOD study shows this area as preferably a retail area out front. And if you have a big garage opening, obviously you can't do that. And the size of the site would require a big garage opening. So I'm just, that's one, something that's different from the TOD, and it's in, I think it's in figure, I got it open here, figure 10.
Mm-hmm.
TOD on page 34.
Right. We did consider, as I said in my remarks some years ago, and did get approved actually for a mixed-use development that involved a retail occupancy on the first floor, and then a limited number of residential units above. We didn't find great marketing interest in that at the time. And as I said in my remarks, it was a judgment that the Philbins made that based upon the development that's been occurring in that area and the residential development, that it would be appropriate to do this on a fully residential basis. I fully agree with you that I think that the TOD as a whole definitely needs and should have a retail component as your planning documents suggest. I just think with this specific unique site, kind of a smaller site, we felt the kind of residential development that we brought to you tonight made a lot of sense and would be a contributing development in the overall area, because it will provide additional units of housing, and that will help foster the kind of retail vibrancy of the TOD as well.
I think we're agreed on the programming of the site. I think the scale of it is good, but it doesn't, a TOD is supposed to be a walkable area, and this has, it's not a, this is, has some opportunities to be a more inviting streetscape. Right now it's, and this isn't design, this is programming. The programming of the street front, I think needs a little bit of more thoughtfulness to it in order to comply with the intent of the TOD. And I'm looking at figure 10, which shows that entire area is more of a more walkable area. And this is not, the building's nice when you drive past it in a car, but it's not, it doesn't comply with the intent of the TOD.
Yeah, and I understand your comment and I don't dispute it. The only thing I would technically point out is we're not really in the TOD. Because at least for now, we're not eligible because of our lot size for the TOD. I understand though, that's not the quibble with the point in terms of harmonization with the TOD area, which we're immediately adjacent to.
Understood, and that's why it's a soft ask. And I guess my other, if you will, soft ask is, we get a lot of feedback on the circle proposal because the renderings tended to not match some of the later design proposals. I think the rendering is very nice. Some of the detailing, and again, I'm just being picky here, but some of the detailing on the rendering aren't shown in the elevations. And so I just would advise that those be consistent, because the rendering is, it's a nice, it's a thoughtful building. But the elevations lack some of the articulation that's in the rendering.
Well, I think we'll make, Pat, I assume that can be addressed and so that the rendering is operative in terms of the exterior architectural design of the building?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay, so we can make those adjustments. The only thing I wanted to go back to, Commissioner Randolph, so I have a full, because I always find your comments to be, compelling. I don't know what I can do with this specific application in terms of the parking issue you raised is intriguing. But, I'm bound under the current regulations to provide what's considered or found to be sufficient on-site parking. So I just, I want to understand your comments, because as I said, I always find them to be thoughtful.
Sure.
I don't know what I can do right now, though, to change this particular, it's a small site, 13,000 square feet. But you tell me what your thinking is, and we could.
So specifically, because we're jammed up because we haven't gotten the POCD done, but we've been working on a series of, and I say we, a number of us have been working on some alternatives. So a parking plan would say 6 spaces, and I'm just being theoretical, 6 spaces in the building. A certain number of people are going to take the train, 20 spaces in the garage across the street. So you end up having more spaces than you have now, and potentially even more because the garage has availability, but come up with a parking plan that accounts for the number of people who have cars. And rather than accommodating everything on site, the garage, I understand, has a very low utilization. So perhaps come in with a plan that says you're going to be using the spaces that are available in the garage rather than putting them on site.
Again, I don't want to belabor, but I appreciate the creativity there. The only problem I could see is the other provisions of the regulations that require on-site parking. And the other thing is that, the parking, the parcel across the street is a separate parcel. And, long-term, I don't know what the Philbins or their respective estates someday down the road, might want to address the development of that parcel. So it's a complicated question. I appreciate what you're saying, but I don't want to.
I think the thought is, in between, think about it and see if something comes up between now and that.
Yeah, and use the garage, not the parking lot. Basically lease spaces in the garage.
Well, yeah, but again, his point is current regulations require him to do what he's doing.
Sure.
And we don't really have an application, so it's a fair food for thought, and maybe something will come of it as you're thinking about it, but.
And
the point is well taken that we, moving forward with what we have, is kind of what we have to at this point.
I mean, I think I think creativity in terms of parking as we move forward, I know is an important priority of this commission. And I appreciate that. And I think we all need to try to bring that creativity to bear on this particular site, though. I hope, without dismissing the thought, and we certainly can talk about it. I hope that overall you'll find the approach here by focusing on residential development of this parcel in a building that, is attractive and well scaled, and does supply sufficient on-site parking. I hope you'll find it has merit in terms of support.
With that question.
Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, thank you. And I do want to compliment the architect because it is really a beautiful, beautiful building in an area that really lacks any creativity with architecture. So I really applaud you. It's good to see something that doesn't look like a army barracks.
Spaceship crash.
Yeah. Yeah, fill in the adjective. I had a question, just on the affordability, say a few questions. Is there any connective tissue between this building and the Metro Center? Because I know while it's not in the TOD proper, it is adjacent to it. Is that something that you've done that we could just have that connective tissue? So
I'm not sure what you're referring.
I guess I'm not clear based on the imagery, like if we have sidewalks, is there some kind of pathway that just, that would bring people easily to the Metro Center?
We think the location is well suited to achieve that goal. We don't have any, specific agreements with the property, the owners of the Metro Center. But again, the overriding attraction to residential use at this site was its proximity to the Metro Center. And I think it's, well situated in terms of easy access to the Metro Center and the surrounding TOD area as well.
You know, and I don't disagree with that. I just think, you know, to have a nice holistic community, I think it would be nice to have those connective parts, if you will.
Yeah, on that, if there's something that the commission sees, you know, and that is within our capacity to do in terms of our site, you know, we're very open to that as a condition of approval. If you think there's some enhancement on site that we can make to, you know, achieve better connectivity with the metro center, we're happy to do that. But that has been a thrust of our overall plan and design since we started.
And then to echo what Commissioner Randolph was saying, I think this area could, you know, we could use some greenery there, like a pocket park. And I realize you have to fulfill your obligations, I guess, with the parking right now under our current regulations. I do think it would be nice to have some greenery there.
Mhm.
And some, because it just is like a bunch of buildings and there's just no aesthetically pleasing area where people can just really sit.
Yeah.
So just again, food for thought.
Mhm.
Just on the affordable units, are they all the same size as the market rate?
They will be. I mean, Pat, what was the units are between 900 and what? And
910 and 961, they're virtually the same size, but you know,
Yeah, so
the ones on the end are slightly smaller, the ones in the middle are the larger ones, so.
Yeah. we'll
And
make sure when we designate the affordable units that we're in compliance with the statute, and that is that the affordable units are, you know, there's only two of them, but they're dispersed well throughout the building and of comparable size to the non-affordable units. My gut thinking would be you'd surely designate one of the largest units as an affordable units, and then you'd probably designate the second unit as one of the moderate size units to be consistent with the overall size of the units in the development.
And those are at 80%?
Yes, they are.
Sorry, then where is like the delivery room for packages?
Pat?
Is there like a delivery room or some kind of area for packages, mail room, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, depending on our mechanical situation, it's probably gonna end up, that mechanical room's gonna end up being a package room and there'll be mailboxes, you know, there's not only.
Understand it's small, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, really nice project. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, one more question, sorry.
Mhm.
Trees removed versus added. I just want to be clear, how many, I saw Mr. Minder's remarks from that. You can just tell me what we have, what's going on with the trees.
Pat?
Yep, just a second. So in the front, we have bushes along the concrete walks, which are used. The street trees, there's an elm. There is a red oak. And there's red oaks on either side of one of the driveways. And then along the sides of the building, there are some white cedar on the sides, and then again, a red oak.
Are we removing any trees, Pat, to accommodate the development?
No,
So no
no
trees.
trees are being disturbed. There's no trees currently on the site. It's pretty much a
Yeah.
parking lot.
Right.
Okay,
So whatever you are adding, it's all.
it's all add.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Braun.
Yes, I just want to follow up on that code review for Mr. Rose. So this code review was done in 2017. That is on this project or a prior project? Because there were so many questions. I just want to make sure they were addressed, you know, sightline questions.
That was a prior project. The 2017 development was, I believe, the mixed use project that I referred to earlier, which had the retail with residential above.
You have the drawing that shows sightline? I don't think I saw it in the package.
I don't know that we do. But
Does the engineer know that we have sightline?
I I mean, I'm not, Mr. Rose can address that, but clearly, if you're familiar with the site, I don't think there's any question that the sight lines are compliant.
Straight and level for, till the two buildings down to the south and then all the way past the light, at Commerce. So it's straight and level. There's no parking on that street, so there's no, you don't have parked cars are gonna be a difficult, situation.
Okay, and continuing on with the Metro Center, just because I've been around for a long time and I remember the Metro Center, when you say the state is draining to an off-site state detention system, you are referring to that three-level wetland system that was created on the Metro Center site?
No,
That's
no,
really town run.
no,
Oh,
no,
no, you're not.
no. There is directly behind our site, there is a small detention basin, which is on the train station property. That's where we're draining to.
Well, that's on town-owned land, right? Not state-owned land?
Oh, just town out now.
I mean, who runs that detention? That's not on your property, so who's in charge of that?
State of Connecticut
Really?
owns the property.
And do they have permitting authority over your draining into their detention basin, or do they have to give you a permit for that?
Mr.
I
Chair,
assume they would.
can I clarify?
Go ahead, Ms. Harrigan.
Thank you.
Commissioner Braun, this is, Ms. Harrigan. I had spoken to the Conservation Director, Tim Bishop, about this. The state of Connecticut did actually own that detention pond, but they turned it over to the town. So now it's within the jurisdiction of the town for that detention basin.
It's considered that is the wetland you're talking about when you say you needed a wetland permit, because detention basins can become wetlands.
That's my understanding.
Correct.
So it's an off-site detention basin, man-made, but that required a wetlands permit, and the Conservation Commission gave a wetlands permit?
Correct.
Okay. And the engineering department is satisfied with the, so you're gonna get us something from engineering and the wetlands permit.
I will work with Ms. Harrigan. We'll certainly give you the wetlands permit and
We can reach out. Yeah, we can reach out in our
yeah, the
capacity.
drainage report has been reviewed and submitted and reviewed by engineering, but I can work with Ms. Harrigan to make sure we get any confirmation beyond that you may need. But I'll certainly get the wetlands permit to you.
Just getting back to the test pits, can you show us on the map where, I can't find where the test pits were done in relation to the drainage system?
Correct. They're not reflected on this, so I will have to get you the information.
You recall where they were? Are they near the,
I do
underneath
not,
the?
2017, I have.
Oh, this is done in what?
Yes, a long time ago.
But they were done for the prior application though, right? Not this application then?
Correct, but it's essentially the same
The
layout.
drainage system is unchanged.
Yeah, it hasn't changed.
Drainage system is unchanged?
Correct.
Okay, so I love your project, but can you get some kind of connection of that drainage system with this project so we know that it's unchanged from that, from whatever the testing you did for that drainage system? Well, I guess all we need to know is that the testing applies to this drainage system, right? If you could mark up this drainage system with wherever the tests were, maybe, would that?
Pat, we
I
can
just
do
want to
that.
make sure, I'm sorry.
Yes.
They'll supply that. If you don't mind, just with an initial submission, just mark it and write.
Yeah, I'm not an engineer. I don't, I just want to make sure we know that we're not adding to any kind of drainage or flooding problem. So I appreciate that extra material if you could provide it to us.
Not a problem.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Harrigan?
If I could also clarify, this project, different iterations of this project have actually been reviewed by the TPZ Commission and approved twice before.
There was an 830G here, right?
There was an 830G
Yeah, that's what I
here,
was
there was a
thinking.
mixed-use project here. So all of these, the on-site detention and the wetlands review, that's been done through the two other iterations, and this is the smallest iteration of those three variations.
Oh.
So, and I realize it's going back quite a ways.
No, I remember the 830G though, because this, right in that area, we thought it was a great spot for it. So, and I thought there was one there, but okay. Thank you, Ms. Harrigan.
I guess what happened to those applications or those approvals?
They were approved and they weren't acted on.
No, I know that, but and that those permits just expired.
Yeah, I can address that, Commissioner. I mean, as I said, we had two other applications. We did the mixed-use proposal, which involved retail first floor, and then I think it was 3 units of housing up above. There wasn't a great deal of interest or marketing in that. And then we did come back and we did an 8-30G. I believe it was 24 units. We couldn't finance it. I mean, the problem with 8-30Gs or the facts with 8-30Gs are they become exceedingly difficult to market when they to pencil out from a financial feasibility standpoint when they're smaller, like 24 units, because with 24 units, 30%, that's 8 having to be affordable. And when you crunch the numbers, they just don't work. So we were never able to achieve financial feasibility there. So the family went back to the drawing board and they were still committed to doing a residential development. And they've come back with this, smaller in scale, but that's the history, and that's why those things didn't get built.
Thank you for that background. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Question about the sidewalks again, because the photo didn't show sidewalks. Do the sidewalks connect to that kiss and drop off area or the road where you drop people off? Or it looks like it only connects to the entryway to the upper level of the Metro Center area.
Correct. The sidewalk stops as it starts to go around the corner of Constant Comment. It stops there, right?
In the other direction.
There's a crossing there to another sidewalk that goes down Constant Comment to the metro station.
Metro station on this, do they connect to the lower level of them? We know where the
Yes.
cafe is and all that?
Yes, yes, it does.
Oh, the sidewalk connects to there.
Yeah, on the other side of the street, yes.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, which is the correct side of the street for it to go down anyway. So that's where all the services are.
Final questions so we can move on.
Drink plan. Who will be managing this? It's a lot of superstructure, I realize, for just 2 units, but they're pretty specific and
Mhm.
to qualify as 8-30G points for our next moratorium.
Yeah, Mark, Mr. Barnhart.
It's a lot of work for 2 units, right?
Yeah, it is, but it'll be done. I mean, Mr. Barnhart will be careful to ensure that we properly designate a manager to run it, and that manager will have to abide by the annual recording requirements. It'll be a decision for the Philbins to make whether they want to undertake that management themselves or whether they want to employ any one of a number of people whose names I or others could give them who specialize in working with offices like Mr. Barnhart's to ensure compliance with the affordable component, the compliance affordability plan.
For Ms. Harrigan, do we need to have that plan ahead of time? Usually we do.
Well, it was either going to be a condition of approval or Mr. Fallon will present it to us.
Mr. Barnhart, in his email that Commissioner Corsillo alluded to, does reference that you could do it as a condition of approval. And I'd be comfortable with that. You've done that in the past. On the other hand, it would not be difficult for me to do it if you want to see it in advance. But basically, it'll be in the form I've done probably, I don't know how many over the last couple of years with Mr. Barnhart. So I'm very familiar with the format that he would expect.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Attorney Fallon.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Just so, when was the time frame to get the affordability plan? I'm sorry, did I miss that?
If you want it, I can produce it over the next few weeks before, certainly before any discussion you have on it. If you prefer to have it in hand rather than make it as a condition of approval, I'll provide that. If that's the preference of the commission, I can provide that to Ms. Harrigan.
Very good, thank you.
All right, that'll end the initial presentation of this application. We'll turn to public comment. There is nobody in the room with us. Is there anybody joining us remotely that wishes to be heard on this application? 1427, 1443 Kings Highway. You see anybody, Ms. Harrigan?
I do not.
There are people in the room, but nobody who has expressed an interest to speak.
Right, anybody joining us remotely, by phone, remotely or by phone, wish to be heard in this application, if you're joining us by phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Nobody signed up in the chat, which is fine, but if you can please identify yourself if you wish to be heard in this application. Last call, anybody, any member of the public?
There's someone who said they will send their comments in an email.
Public hearing.
You know, that's a bit problematic. So,
Yeah,
If the public hearing closes, they won't.
well, we've accepted things in the past. I don't like
Oh.
setting that precedent, but, remember the person who said they'll submit by email, considering the timing, I'm inclined to close the public hearing tonight. Which normally when the hearing is closed, we don't get additional submissions after. If you can please, jump on and voice your statements, that would be ideal. Preferred, really.
obviously, the only problem I have, not to make it a bigger issue, but it's very difficult to close the hearing and then have an email come in that you can consider that I can't review or respond
Well,
to.
yeah, I agree, especially when it will be literally potentially the only public comment.
Correct.
If it was one of many, you can get a theme, so to speak, for the others. Attorney Fallon, can we do this? Is it worth maybe letting them do the email by the end of the week? Considering what the email is, and should you like to, we can come to rebuttal.
In fairness to the commission, more than my client, I think that's a dangerous slope, respectfully, Mr. Chairman. Because when, first of all, if the person who just sent the comment is here, he or she could speak now. And that's what we have a public hearing for. I don't mean to make this more difficult than it is, but I think it's a very bad slope if you're going to start having, modified closed hearings. In other words,
I'm not, this is not something I would prefer either. I mean, we do
Well-
encourage people to make submissions publicly, by email. This is maybe the first in a while that we'll open and close the same night. So I'm mindful of that as well.
I mean, I don't have an easy solution, unfortunately, for you because I don't know. I feel badly for you with the workload you have and for my client if this hearing doesn't close tonight. On the other hand, if you want to extend the extreme courtesy to this individual who said, I'll send my comments in by mail, I don't think you have much choice but to leave the hearing open so that the integrity of your decision
No,
is.
I think that's fair. So why don't we do this? I assume the member of the public, not speaking,
I mean, I can't understand why the person wouldn't speak now. I mean,
that's okay. I mean, I'm not gonna get into it, public speaking and stuff. Why don't we do this? We'll leave the public comment open. We'll get I will make it a condition that the comment be received by Friday. If we don't receive it by the end of the day Friday, it won't be considered part of the record. And we'll leave this open for hopefully maybe just a short rebuttal for our next meeting next week. Attorney Fallon?
I will not be here. I'm gonna be away next week, so it would have to be 2 weeks, unfortunately, but.
I mean, I think that's fine. Let me put it this way, if we don't get it, or if you want to submit a rebuttal in writing, maybe that's another good way of handling it. Do you mind if?
It's just so hard to do that because I don't know what this phantom person is going to say.
But I would say again, though, we get the public comments by Friday. You take a look at it and we'll set this down for rebuttal in 2 weeks.
Fine.
And should you see it and wish to just submit something in writing?
That's fine.
If not, we have hopefully a 5-minute rebuttal in 2 weeks.
So I understand, that's fine. So I understand. So any rebuttal any public comment would have to be submitted by Friday, correct?
Anything that's in writing will have to be submitted by Friday. We will not accept anything after 5 p.m. on Friday.
Okay, and then the hearing would be left open until the 22nd for the limited purpose of any rebuttal by me if necessary.
No public comment in 2 weeks.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner
Chairman?
Ren-
Oh, sorry.
Hold on, why, okay, why? Why are there questions?
I just respectfully, I think, and I appreciate your, value of public comment, but that privilege of extending the public hearing until Friday to allowing other people to weigh in, that's not fair because other people, I imagine on other applications wanted to weigh in and didn't maybe have the opportunity or didn't know the procedure. So I just think it's just maybe unfair just to do that to accommodate one person. That's just my opinion, but I respect your decision.
I concur. I know that this process is difficult for people to understand, but the purpose of public comment is to provide feedback at the time. And if the person's on now, I would respectfully request that that they express themselves now in order to not inconvenience the applicant and the commission. So and I know this is an intimidating process, but if you could please voice your concerns now.
All right, thank you. Sure. Commissioner Braun?
For time to also get, I forgot to ask about WPCA. I thought I saw they got a WPCA permit for this. Okay, and I think that was attached.
They're gonna need it. Well, let's not, we
Yeah.
were kind of done with the initial presentation. So
Yeah, so as part of the initial so you'll provide those things from engineering and wetlands rather. Maybe that'll be helpful with the extra time.
Well, I'm sorry, here this woman is
No, I
written.
don't-
now.
hold on, I'm assuming it's Miss Bradshaw. I don't want you to withdraw your comments. If you feel that you want to submit comments in writing, that's fine. We have allowed that in the past. Everything else, I think, in the past, we've had multiple hearing dates where people had the time in between to do this. This is somewhat unusual for us as far as opening and closing in one day. I think the procedure that I outlined is fair and reasonable. There have been requests for other information, which we could have gotten at the close of hearing, but I think they'll take 5 minutes of rebuttal. The commission itself shouldn't take this time to ask more questions. If you have questions now's the time, and rebuttal should be only on really what the public comment is. So if she chooses, the member of the public chooses not to submit anything in writing, that's fine. This is not a problem. If there's I assume, Attorney Fallon, if we don't get public comment, we can close it at the next hearing without any problems, right?
Right, absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to just make clear without belaboring it. So I'm not going to necessarily submit what Commissioner Braun was referring to by Friday. They're two separate things.
No, agree.
The hearing was going to close and I could submit that through staff like we always did. However, I respect the chair's judgment that what we have is if Ms. Bradshaw or anyone else wants to submit further comments, that would be done by Friday. If I feel I need to respond to those comments, I would do so, by early next week. And then, the hearing would remain open for the limited purpose of any rebuttal that I might have on the 22nd. If there's no comments submitted, or if I have no comments to any public comment that come in by Friday, then the hearing can close without further activity on the 22nd. Is that kind of what you're anticipating?
Yeah, and you don't have to submit anything in writing. You can come on the 22nd for 5 minminutes, 10 minutes.
That's fine. That's fine.
You'll be remote, yeah, whatever. So come without a tie. Come without a tie if you want.
That's okay.
All right.
See you Zoom too.
Yeah, exactly. So let's do it that way. More comfortable with that. Any other member of the public wish to be heard? Otherwise, I'm going to close verbal public comments.
Sorry.
I know. All right, so we're gonna go for it, as I said. Public comment is gonna be closed except for written public comments that must be received before 5 p.m. on this Friday. Attorney Fallon, as we discussed, you can either submit further things in writing
Just come, I'll see you on the 22nd, either to
or, yeah,
no comment or hear my
there's
comment.
no comment, tell us and I'll close it without you needing to be here in 2 weeks, okay?
But it's always good to see you all, so that's no problem.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Yeah, once a week. All right, so gonna adjourn this item as I specified.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
We got another public hearing.
One more?
All right, 1320 Kings Highway cutoff, special permit and coastal site plan application of 1320 KHC Associates LLC for a new one-story commercial building in the Zion Commercial District.
Mr. Chair, the applicant is
That's
unable
right.
to get their traffic consultant to attend this evening, so they requested if the commission could just open this item and then table it to a date certain of May 6th.
Okay,
Did they start it?
they're not here.
Oh, I mean, they're not.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I remember discussing this with you, Ms. Harrigan. I don't think this is not a 830G. This is not gonna throw out, we've already accounted for this as far as timing and stuff, right?
No, I'm sorry, I could explain what the project is. This is a, this is the former Bank of America building where they're going to be tearing down that building to construct a new singular drive-through use with 2 additional smaller restaurant uses that would be takeout restaurant uses.
So
What's the address of that again?
1320 Kings Highway cutoff.
All
All right.
McDonald's.
It was mixed use, like with apartments also?
Well, they're not ready to go forward. They don't have a traffic report or.
They have a traffic report. Their traffic consultant is not available
Okay,
until the May
so
6th date.
which is always something we prefer. Been nice maybe to have started it, but it is what it is. Can I have I wasn't really sure what the process and procedure was, but they kind of preferred this, so I was gonna hold it back. Can I have a
Are
motion?
you opening it first?
It's opened. So for that matter, unless there's an issue, I don't think we need to have a vote on it. I'm gonna adjourn this until May 6th, is what you said? All right. So with that, I'll adjourn that to May 6th. All right. I mean, that ends the public hearing aspects of it. I asked to put the planning discussion of the P O C D on to at least address the last portion of it. I'll leave that up to everybody. We have a half hour. We probably can get rid of that last section. If everybody so those, I think getting rid of the last section might be a good thing.
Resilient community.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I did submit last week and we can get through the education, kind of a for it, if you will. I wasn't prepared to speak to it tonight. I'm happy to if you want to.
Well, I
but-
just thought we'd just get through one and.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's fine.
as much as we do have plenty of other things to do after this, but I just thought this is what we've been focusing in on, as we discussed last time, we would end this portion of it. You and Commissioner Braun had something, harbor management, and then something else, and then others kind of to look back and see what else there is. But I thought maybe
Okay, fair
for a
enough.
few minutes, we can just kind of complete what we've been doing for the last few months. That way we don't have, because last time we said we would submit things in by writing. This probably alleviates that. We have a half hour. Hopefully it doesn't take a half hour, but can we move forward with that?
Good here.
Okay,
We're
so,
on page 72.
yeah, do you mind if I look on with you? I left mine outside.
And I owe Emeline to meet. I know it's been busy, so.
No, that's fine, but I just thought this is what we've always been focusing in on, so let's
Blue
spend
pages.
blue pages, 79, strategy A. Why don't we read all, I think strategy A, let's read all of strategy A. I think that,
It's 72.
72, okay.
yeah, page 72. I think we do better when we read them all. The strategy A and, go from there.
Do you want me to read them?
No, I don't want anybody, no.
Okay.
You can all read. I'm just, outside, but I just don't.
Read that on the phone.
Again, I like to focus on on the language itself. A lot of other suggestions may be coming in, so let's focus on what we have here.
For them one by one?
I think we do better when we look at them all together and see, instead of just doing one to one. One by one, excuse me. Any thoughts on strategy A?
Number 4, I don't know what that means. How does that help resiliency?
Which letter?
Number
A.
4A, it says, support appropriate development in resilient hubs such as TOD near the Fairfield Black Rock Passenger Rail Station. How does that help, or how does resiliency help that, or how does that help
Sure.
resiliency?
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, strategy A,
No, we
item
got
4.
you. We got you. I think it's just one of those general statements to help us craft the more specific regulations or themes later.
If I could speak to
Go ahead.
that, one of the things that has come out of resiliency planning in Connecticut, both by the Nature Conservancy, the Regional Plan Association, there is an understanding that sea level rise will affect housing units in close proximity to where we're going to experience sea level rise. And adding more housing units in areas that are not expected to be impacted by the sea level rise has been a focus of long-range resiliency planning efforts, especially because we're at a deficit for housing right now as it is. Focusing on those areas that we know will not be impacted by future flooding has been a recommended focus.
So it doesn't really say that. Maybe we could reword it so it says that.
I think it's pretty clear.
I mean, I think it's clear enough, but broad enough to kind of hit what we need to.
I mean,
It
appropriate
looks
is,
like we're,
I don't know, it seems kind of, to me, it's subjective, like what appropriate could be to you, it could be different to me, and I just think we just have to crystallize it better. I know we have to keep it a little broad, but
So it's
Do you want to remove that word appropriate? Do you want to just say support development in resilient hubs such as TOD near the Fairfield Black Rock Passenger Rail Station?
support more development in resilient hubs, because my understanding of resiliency planning is to protect what we have now, not to encourage us to build more in the flood areas.
That's correct. I guess my only other, this is where I had a comment, is I think it says such as the TOD. Is that clear to everybody, or should it say such as, including but not limited to the TOD? Is it clear? Such as is pretty clear, but I don't know if we need to make it clearer.
that's fine. That's clear to me.
Okay.
in my opinion.
It can be either or.
But a limit striking appropriate might make it a little clearer.
That's fine. I'm used, I mean, I think we're all used to hearing language like appropriate or harmony and things like that are always
Okay.
up to, but I mean,
Don't feel strongly about it, so.
It seems like it should, no, it seems like it should be stated in the reverse, which is discourage development in areas that are going to be subject to sea level rise. That to me makes more logical sense.
Right, but this is a plan of conservation and development, so where do we want development? We want development in appropriate areas. We're trying to direct development to places that are resilient. Correct?
Subject to sea level rise, but isn't the TOD area subject to sea level rise?
No, I think just to clarify, the resilient hubs are identified in figure 37.
okay.
Look at those.
Page 7?
Within the,
Page 70.
Oh, 2 pages
All
back.
right, do people want to get rid of appropriate? Does that make everybody, does that help, or does that?
I think it's clear as written.
I don't see any hubs on page 70.
Yeah,
If it's,
All right.
We
I'm
want to
not-
support
yeah.
appropriate development, just not inappropriate development.
But you know what I mean about,
No, I know.
people have different definitions of it.
Yeah.
So, but I'm fine with keeping it, honestly.
Okay. Anything else for strategy A?
Commissioner Delgado, the resilient hubs, oh, I see on page 70, they're outlined in dotted red lines.
Yes. Correct.
So is that where the Metro Center is? Looks like it, hard to tell.
Yeah, I see it.
Yep. Anything else for A?
No.
All right, let's go on to strategy B.
Can I ask another question about A? Are we focusing on having buried utilities like underground? Is that mentioned here at all?
Yeah, we got an interesting letter about that, I think, in December. Just given the current situation, I think that would be something to consider.
And resilient hubs.
That would that be not specific to resilient hubs?
Oh,
If
go
I
ahead.
can. So our zoning regulations, within the, special permit section already recommend undergrounding utilities where possible. The one thing that I will say is that at the end of the day, it's up to the utility. So, for example, along Commerce Drive, when the trademark development went in, they specifically requested UI if they could underground the utility poles. And UI said that they couldn't because it feeds the train station. And so they need better access to the existing infrastructure, the way it is on the poles. And so even for other portions of their project, there may be corridors where the UI is not amenable to undergrounding, but it is something that's already within our zoning regulations.
And it's outside of our control. It's really UI
Yeah.
things. Okay,
Interesting.
all right,
And,
so.
and there is, an item in C3 that does talk about the grid. So I guess in theory, that could be part of that.
Let's get to that.
Yeah.
Okay, strategy B. 3 we've added recently, that should be as fair. Anything, potential edits, looks decent enough.
Good here.
Showing that shows the resiliency areas, that could be a little bit buffed up. It's really hard to see where they are if that's the only map that shows it. It shows 3 little dotted lines. Can we improve on that drawing?
We can request they make it darker.
Or even maybe if it's only gonna be in the central middle part, cut off the top if they're not there. Zoom in a bit, maybe if we can.
Okay.
The map that shows the individual and coordinated risk reduction area, I know that means that's where you're telling homeowners you're in a flood area or sea level rise area, near a river, I guess, or the ocean. What does that mean exactly? That we're telling them what they can do to protect their property?
Well, that's something we can discuss, I think, offline. Let's focus on strategy B.
No, but that should be in the the strategy doesn't seem to address that.
If I can, if you're finished with strategy C, I'm happy to move on to D because I wanted to also clarify some of the comments that have come in about that section.
Hold on, we're on.
You're on C though.
I
so
haven't
you-
looked at C yet. I was doing B, I think.
On
Okay.
B. Let's-
Okay.
Sorry, B. Anything on B? C. Take a look at C.
I think C could be buffed up with number 2 about low impact development. I think that's the standard now. And that should be pursued in all instances. It should be stronger language. And we should add something to our regulations. I think I mentioned this at our last meeting.
Well, what are you
and this might
proposing? What are you proposing? for
something stronger than's written there, like, consider modifying our regulations to require low impact development.
I think ensure is fairly.
Well, we'll develop the regulations when we do it. I mean, this is directing us at least to kind of go forward with it. I mean, this whole thing, in many respects, being the visionary document, is to lead to potentially regulation amendments. So, I mean, I think
Well, if it doesn't say so, it's probably not gonna be done. I mean, we say so in other instances, changing a B zone to a C zone or adding density to certain area. We have a lot of other areas where we're suggesting we change our regulations very specifically. I think stormwater, we really need to put that on a higher priority where it's more a goal that we're gonna try to achieve instead of just,
I don't know,
looks
I
like
think,
it's saying it would be nice where possible, but don't worry about it. That's what this tells me.
I mean, I think the opposite. I think it's ensure it's utilized where possible. I mean, do it everywhere, anywhere, at all times. Steve, kind of thought that too?
Yeah, I mean, ensure is strong. We're planning to make sure it happens. And we'll
I
follow
think
up.
it's strong.
What do we, other people?
And do we have any input into like the engineering department? Because sometimes we never even hear from them about stormwater. We didn't hear from them today, for example.
I don't know if that's true. But we can, we, we can, I think this has been shown to the engineering department.
We should have collaboration with engineering and conservation on stormwater issues to ensure low impact development practices are achieved, because I don't think we're getting, I don't know, I don't feel like we're getting their sort of we only hear from conservation if there's an inland wetland, but they also have a lot to do with the coastal areas, for example. I'd like to hear from them about that. I'd like to,
When we ask what we can, and sometimes they say they don't comment because they don't have jurisdiction, so.
I don't know if we've asked, and I don't know what we've asked. I don't know what the I think this document can guide us to do a better job.
I don't think that's
You say
gonna
something like
change.
coordinate and collaborate with engineering and conservation about a drainage stormwater systems to ensure that low impact development is utilized and we protect our coastal areas, something like that.
I mean, I think we do that. I think that everything that's in here, ensure low this and all these general statements, obviously imply that practically because that's how we would do it, but, Commissioner Delgado?
No, I mean, that, this is kind of a side note, and I don't wanna go too deep on a tangent, but I've been thinking about us having a conversation with the other permitting bodies to just fully understand the process of our applications, because at times it feels as though whether commissioners feel or it's the conversation is focused on like us being the final authorizing body. And the reality is that all these applications are gonna go through all of these departments and have a level of detail and expectations there. So to the extent that we can understand that better, it might help people, whether it's choosing their comments or how they're deciding to question or be critical of projects based on a better understanding of that.
That's fair. I mean, I think we all have that opportunity to do that even offline. It's certainly not something we can schedule anytime soon, but that's a fair point. All right.
So we're good with ensure?
I mean, I think lead number two, that mean, I'm fine with it, but
I'm good with it.
If we're
And if
gonna
I,
have the, oh, sorry, I keep interrupting.
that's okay. I mean, I just wanted to be clear as well that we do have requirements within our current regulations for adherence to the state stormwater manual, as well as a recommendation for low impact design. So it's already within our zoning regulations. We already regulate to that standard. We regulate to the state statute required coastal site plan review process. So, and so that's gonna be up to you as a commission to determine when we get to the zoning regs, whether you want to strengthen that language in some way that, that meets a higher standard.
all right. I mean, I think in looking at this, does anybody have any issues with C?
Yes, exactly what I just said.
I'm not sure that anybody else is kind of jumping on board with adding something as you said.
Mr. Delgado had a very good point about collaboration with other departments. They have expertise, both engineering and conservation. Conservation does their own review when it's inland wetlands. They don't have regulatory review under tidal wetlands or coastal, but they're also environmental experts, and they do our marsh restoration program. They're working
Commissioner
on,
Delgado, I mean, I understood what you're saying more as a, you know, not necessarily for the edits to this. I mean, were you suggesting an edit to this?
No,
Okay.
suggesting an edit that we collaborate and coordinate
I get it. I
with,
heard you.
okay.
I like your idea, Mr. Dragata, because we got a comment from the engineer that actually said no comment. And I would love to understand why we got that. I mean, that was just appalling to me.
We're working on that.
No, I think that's what my understanding
Fair
is that
comment.
we're.
I mean,
The
that's a
comment
fair,
is no
that's,
comment.
that's fair feedback.
All right, but I mean, no, without a doubt, I mean, I think that was been addressed,
No, but I would like to.
interdepartmental, I mean, so that could be better. I mean, Ms. Pooley was great when she was here.
Yeah.
As far as outlining things for us, and it was a lot easier. But again, is anybody jumping on board with Commissioner Braun? All right,
Can you,
she wants something along the lines of coordinating with other departments.
but we already kind of do that.
I agree,
I mean, right, that happens kind of in-house.
I agree.
So,
It's done. Yeah, I think there's an opportunity, but we need to table that to another time because we're working on the POCD now, right?
Well, yeah, I just don't think it belongs in the POC.
Correct.
and I think a lot of us do reach out to people if we do professional insight. or something like that.
All right. All right, so I think absent, I mean, anything else for C, or can we move on to D? All right, moving on,
What's CRS?
It's the,
moving on to D,
Can't remember.
moving on to D.
What's yours?
well, if FEMA doesn't exist, it won't matter anyway, but you know,
All right, everybody read the, let's do the two and,
What's CRS?
it's the community rating system.
Okay.
So,
Can you spell that out?
yes, we can. I'm sorry.
Because it does mean something else.
Yes.
Yeah,
no,
can't
that's fair,
remember.
let's spell that one out, that's a fair request.
Sorry.
Modal streetscape. I'm still on C.
Well,
I'm on D.
we're on D.
What's multimodal streetscape? What does that mean?
Bike paths. Bicycle paths.
And sidewalks.
Sidewalks.
All good.
Any issues with D?
I don't know what CRS means. What does that mean? Did someone define that already?
Yes, community rating system.
Oh, well, that should be spelled out, obviously.
On strategy D, number 2, I'm not sure I agree with our existing, for homes that are in floodplain right now. We already have limits on what sort of development not to exceed 50% of the value. And existing homeowners have to make a choice if they want to make any substantial change as to whether or not it's financially prudent, necessary to raise a house. So I don't know that continuing to support home elevation is what we want to do. We want to support any new buildings, which of course they're required to comply with the existing flood regulations. But as far as houses that are there, I mean, you're talking several $100,000 to raise houses. I, for instance, have a basement. I could fill it in if I wanted to comply with the flood regulations. My first floor is above the floodplain. And if, God forbid, Sandy hits again, it'll cost me 10 to 20,000 to replace my refrigerator and furnace. But the thought of encouraging me to raise my house to deal with a potential 20,000 loss, I don't think necessarily applies, and I don't know that that's necessarily a policy. I think our existing, just simply to continue to support, prudent steps to implement compliance with existing floodplain regulations. Be an appropriate response, but not specifically say, people should be spending hundreds of thousands to raise ranches or colonials or whatever. So let Sandy carry him away and allow rebuilding.
How should we
How do you want to
how should
reword
we
it?
revise it?
I would say simply to continue to support compliance with floodplain regulations within, areas that are within the risk reduction areas.
Ms. Harrigan, any, is this language specific to something or is softening it to, like Mr. Commissioner Levy suggested, okay?
The one thing, if I could comment, is both section D and section E, there was some feedback from, and I'm not gonna remember exactly, it was the Flood Erosion Control Board, now it's the FERB. Because there's resiliency thrown in there and it's a whole much longer name for the board. What they have asked us to do, just to give you a heads up, and we will figure out the language for that. They don't really like the idea of the individual and coordinated risk. They want it to be more general because they don't like the idea of telling homeowners that they have a portion of work to do and then that grants only apply in a coordinated way in certain areas. We tried to explain that it's like a Venn diagram and there's overlap in the coordinated risk areas where there's also individual responsibility. The town, in most circumstances, outside of a grant program, and again, we don't know whether FEMA will be here in 2 years from now. It could be, maybe it won't be. And that's where we've gotten our grant funding for a lot of these projects. There may not be funding for to support individuals doing work to make their structures more resilient long-term. There is certainly the effort on the FERB to pursue funding, whether it's town, state, or federal, to do larger, I would say, town projects to make the shoreline and the riverine areas more resilient. They have concerns about pointing out that something is the homeowner's responsibility versus the town's responsibility. And so they have asked us to slightly modify this language so it's it seems as though we're not providing grants to individuals, which we may not be able to. So I just wanna, as you're thinking about this section, just know that it might evolve slightly, but the intent is gonna be the same.
Does anything Commissioner Levy suggests, like, go against that or?
No, I think that's fine. It just makes it a little less specific, but that's fine.
Or continue to support efforts to fund and ameliorate floodplain risks, something general, like, that, yeah, if you can get grants and individuals qualify for grants, that's great. But,
All right, so what are your thoughts on what the language should be?
So, continue to support efforts to comply with the existing floodplain regulations and encourage
Can we just say continue to support efforts for residential structures to become more resilient?
that's
I'd
good.
like to say that.
And I don't know, do we want to put in something about to pursue, grants? I don't know if we want to put grants in there or anything, but, and pursue, and foster opportunities for, assistance in floodplain areas.
Federally available?
Available.
I think any funding, because
Yeah.
federally may not be available.
Do you have that?
Why don't we say and pursue funding where possible?
Where possible.
Anywhere.
Anyone who's willing
We'll
to
take
get
money anyway.
Okay. Any issues with that? Can we change number 2 to that? Is that fair? Thoughts, consensus?
Okay. Thank you.
That's just good.
That's good, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
All right. Anything else with D? No. Change to number 2 and then spelling out CRS. All right, strategy E. 6, 7, and 8 were recently added, so they should be
Just
well in order, I think, but
one question, why was I know I looked up the Camden and Rutland neighborhoods. I've never even been over there, but was that called out for a specific reason?
We had a FEMA grant application that we were working on. And unfortunately, a private property owner purchased the sites instead. However, this is in what's called a floodway. which is an area where the channel gets backed up and it, just like a high velocity flood zone along the shoreline, it's in this particular area because of the oxbow of the Brewster River, as it gets constrained by 95, it becomes a swirling, really dangerous area where if we continue to get really significant high volume flooding events without a lot of warning, we think that there's potential for more unfortunate
So even if it's,
property and casualty incidents there.
even with the recent purchase, we should still leave this in here just because.
Yeah.
You should.
Particularly vulnerable.
Yeah, it's a very vulnerable area.
Gotcha.
Right under the highway there.
Yeah.
I know.
Cemetery.
We edited recently. So that should be hopefully well in hand. Anything else for E?
Just number 6, could you explain that one?
So within the state statute, there is actually an opportunity to have a fund that helps to finance locally some of the infrastructure projects that you may need. I think that it's very specifically defined by statute. It allows you to invest those funds in a certain way. And if I can also explain section 7, that's a different part of what's allowed within statute. Much like if you have access to the town's sewer system, you pay a sewer use fee. All people who would have access to stormwater infrastructure within the roadway would also pay an additional fee into that stormwater
The raid tax?
fund, correct? And so it's just a way to provide a nexus between the fees, i.e. taxes that you would pay, and then it would go into a dedicated account that would then pay for those infrastructure improvements that we need for stormwater, for our stormwater system, for example. So it would just be a dedicated fund.
Related to 7, and sorry, I'm just trying to understand what's here. So the Stormwater Authority, would that be a separate department? How's that?
It would be almost like the Water Pollution Control Authority.
Okay.
A board that would, review different,
Because they're segmented systems.
correct,
Okay, gotcha.
yes.
So any edits for strategy E?
And this is within our remit?
It could be if it were, but it would have to be adopted locally. I think there's only 2 communities statewide who presently have a stormwater authority, and I think it's Stamford and I want to say one of the Eastern Connecticut communities.
Is that a
It's allowed within state statute.
an RTM or is it?
Yes, you would have to go through Board of Selectmen, RTM.
okay.
It would have to be an ordinance change.
We'd sponsor it basically.
I don't believe we would. I think it would be the, correct.
Okay. But I'm just wondering, I mean, I think this is a great idea, but is this in our remit is just what I'm wondering.
Well, there are other things in here that.
Yeah, I mean,
don't
the whole
pertain
idea is
directly
just
to
to kind of,
us.
it's not,
Okay.
I would leave it in, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting
Yeah,
taking
no, I
it
know,
out,
yeah, I
just
got it.
asking. And I really appreciate the thoughtful additions to this. It's a really, high level of thinking on.
Yeah, I like the coastal resiliency. fund.
Have faith, remember, talk about stomach.
All right, I think we're good with strategy E then. All right, so we've gotten through at least the blue pages. As I kind of outlined last time, Kathy and Emmeline will work with, Kathy and Alexis will work with Emmeline on their pieces. We have the harbor management that came in recently, not recently, but it came in. I think also Emmeline, if you don't mind looking, seeing if there's anything else besides those 3 items. People had mentioned narrative issues with narratives. Start getting those together so we can look at them. Again, I don't think a full rewrite is a good idea, but targeted suggestions, substantive narrative sections is fine. I think that's kind of where we are. The hope of having a public hearing this yearish.
What's what's left to do? It feels like we've gone through the substance of this. Is the rest of it just general edits?
Well, that's, I just went through. I mean, Kathy and Alexis had things, so they're gonna work with Emmeline to refine them, and then it'll get presented to us. Harbor Management had put something out, I think, back in November that we really didn't get a chance to add in before we started this again. So that's gotta be reviewed. There may be one or two others that I'm just not thinking of that may need to be just kind of reviewed to see if there's anything we want, staff suggests to put in that we can review as well. But those are the last kind of like four main item, the narrative stuff too, if there's any issues with narrative. Those are the last five main items that we should be working on. I doubt there's gonna be time at a hearing like this to do it. We're gonna have to maybe submit things via email and, see where we are essentially after Alexis and after the five things I just talked about.
So
And then,
There's also a mandatory like time frame, Jeff, that's in the statute. Like, I think was it, Emily had to post it 65 days or,
We've already done that once.
oh, you did do that. I didn't know that. Okay.
we've done that, so I think we're past that, but we
Oh,
still
I
need
thought it
to.
was like the actual like adoption form of it.
right, I'm just really referring to getting substance. It feels like most of the critical issues we have, and maybe not unanimity, but we've got consensus on. So rather than belaboring this thing, I mean, how much work do you have left to do on this? If you got the harbor management, is the harbor management changes, are they significant?
I think I'll reiterate what I said at the last review in the last chapter, which is where it came up. That I think the recommendations that they made are largely encompassed within the P O C D. There were only one or two items, which I would leave to the discretion of the commission to decide whether they feel that they need to be incorporated into the plan.
I don't think there's much, essentially, I don't think there's much more. I listed five things, but I think they're pretty targeted with, again, Kathy and Alexis's portions, harbor management, looking and seeing if there's anything else we missed, and narrative issues. So everybody can look at narrative to see if there's an issue with narrative stuff.
I thought we discussed the time frame last time, so I'm not more confused by.
Well, I don't know, I mean, you said November, which is, I,
Well, listen, this is, like I said, the next few weeks, up to a month, we've got the five things we're gonna be doing. And we'll have a better idea in the next few weeks as to where to go next. But as I said, I'm gonna be sending out this chart in the beginning of the night. I'm gonna send out this chart kind of outlining where the scheduling is for the next few weeks, up till essentially through July, and into August too. So I think hitting those 5 points that I've discussed on is the next step. We should be trying to get a draft out 30 days at least before a public hearing on this item. We should have a public hearing and hopefully maybe a vote as things stand here today before November. So,
right, which seems like an inordinately long period of time, considering that every meeting we have, we say we haven't agreed on the P O C D, which is standing in the way of our text amendments, which guide the actual planning process.
I understand that.
So I guess in order to accommodate some changes, which I think the majority of us think have already been incorporated, I would request that comments be provided in a timely manner so we can act on this and not, delay enacting text amendments, because the town is suffering from these 830Gs, and we've got a moratorium, but it would be helpful if we could align on the plan and start
I agree.
getting to the text
We're all
amendments.
volunteers, Jeff. We have.
Agree
full-time
with
jobs.
everything you
We're
said, Jeff.
doing
Jeff,
Once a week.
Guys,
So
all
have
right.
some grace.
I
for your-
disagree with every word you said. We passed a dozen text amendments in the last 2 years. We passed one tonight. We passed the DRD. We passed the fiveplex. We're not holding up on text amendments. This is not holding up on anything. I completely disagree. with
All
everything
right,
you said.
please. I've outlined where we're gonna go with this. I think we're all are in agreement generally with where we're going with this, and kind of a deadline of having this thing buttoned up, having a hearing and potentially a vote. Anything can change in 2 weeks, but as we stand here now, this should, I hope, be voted on before November. So, and I think if we work on this, even with our big schedule, we can do that. So we've got the 5 items, everybody's got their homework. Let's see where we are in 3 or 4 weeks. Okay? All right. I'll adjourn the hearing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.